Chapter 1604. One of the elders grabbed a book from afar and flipped through it on the spot, looking delighted. Giant Scale Race's Fire Cloud Spell. Hiss, within the Giant Scale tribe, this item is definitely not leak. Hearing this, everyone began to absorb it. As they read through it, all of them revealed expressions of pleasant surprise. Sky-devouring 7 techniques. Galaxy Seal. Snake entanglement 9 steps. The disdainful scene was instantly replaced by surprise. Murong Feng also flipped through a few books, looking shocked. He never knew that the Shui family had hidden so many advanced alien race divine spells. If the Shui family could train all of them, their overall power would increase by leaps and bounds. He said, "Brother Shui, these are..." Shui Yuntian thought of Su Yu and felt a bit guilty. A few months ago, a master descended from the Twin Star Island. He was proficient in all races' languages and translated them on the spot. Murong Feng finally understood. If the Shui family had really trained these divine spells, they would not have fallen to such a state. "Brother Shui, are you really going to give these to the Murong family?" Murong Feng's palm felt heavy. Shui Yuntian nodded. "What do you think? If possible, I will trade these 100 alien race divine spells for you to take care of the old and weak of the Shui family." Receiving such a great benefit, be it the elders or the normal people, they were all so happy that they could not close their mouths and agreed. At this point, the last bit of Shui Yuntian's mental illness was gone. "Thank you for your help." Shui Yuntian bowed, feeling complicated. Murong Feng sighed. "Brother Shui, I will take care of the Shui family for you." "Wait." A clear voice was heard. A beautiful figure rushed in from outside the hall. It was Murong Qingqing. Murong Feng frowned. "Who allowed you to come?" He had already punished Murong Qingqing to face the wall and reflect, but she ran out. Murong Qingqing argued. "Leader, this concerns my lifelong happiness. I cannot come out of seclusion. You can punish me as you wish." She turned around and stared at Shui Yuntian. "Uncle Shui, do you know who I am?" Shui Yuntian glanced at her. Seeing that she was so beautiful, he knew who she was. He smiled warmly. "You must be Miss Qingqing, right?" Murong Qingqing responded with a cold face. "As long as you know. Your Shui family is about to perish. Shouldn't you break off the engagement?" Shui Yuntian's expression changed slightly, and then he smiled bitterly. Shui family, this broken boat, was about to sink. It would be strange if Murong Qingqing didn't immediately draw a line between them. Shui Yuntian said sincerely, "Miss Qingqing, the Shui family might be incompetent, but Shui Yu, his future achievements are limitless. As a senior, I sincerely advise Miss Qingqing to think twice before you act." "Limitless? Haha, the Shui clan is already dead. Can a single Shui Yu overturn the heavens?" Murong Qingqing sneered. "That little bit of talent of his, without the protection of any power, will only make him die faster. Finally, I will respectfully call you Uncle Shui. If you really have my best interests at heart, then cancel my engagement with Shui Yu in front of everyone. Don't drag me down anymore," Murong Qingqing said. Towards this, the 10 elders expressed their support with silence. Only Murong Feng yelled coldly, "Murong Qingqing, if you dare to be impudent again, I won't forgive you." Right then, Shui Yuntian waved his hand and stared at Murong Qingqing. His eyes were filled with pity and sympathy as he said, "You and I have made the same mistake, a mistake that I will regret for the rest of my life, underestimating Shui Yu." Because he had underestimated Su Yu, Shui Yuntian had not used Su Yu to search for the starlight grass. If he had left the mountain earlier, the Shui clan wouldn't have suffered such heavy casualties. The starlight grass would have been gathered a long time ago, and the Shui clan wouldn't have fallen to such a state today. He looked at Murong Qingqing, and it was as if he was looking at himself from the day before. "All right. Uncle promises you that we'll break off the engagement." Shui Yuntian took out the document and tore it in front of everyone, then stared at Murong Qingqing and said, I hope you won't regret this. Seeing this, a relieved smile appeared on Murong Qingqing's face. She laughed and said, Regret? No. Only by getting rid of him can I marry the Feather God race's young master, to Obalun. How could I regret it? Sighing deeply, Shui Yuntian walked out of the hall without saying a word. Under everyone's gazes, Shui Yuntian felt as if there was a blade on his back. His last bit of dignity had been trampled on in this hall, leaving not a trace behind. Farewell, Murong family members. With his back facing everyone, Shui Yuntian smiled. This smile might be the farewell for eternity. However, Shui Yuntian suddenly stopped and gazed into the distance with his brows tightly creased. Murong Feng's expression also changed slightly. He suddenly flashed out of the hall and stood at the entrance, looking out shoulder to shoulder with Shui Yuntian. He said with a solemn voice, Enemy attack! Elders, prepare for battle! Ordinary clansmen, hide in the facilities! His majestic voice resounded throughout the entire Murong family. The inside of the mansion immediately became a mess. In the distance, a mass of dark clouds rolled over like a great army pressing down on the border. Within the black clouds, a tyrannical aura spread out. In particular, there were two auras comparable to first-layer world venerables, causing Murong Feng's expression to turn grave. As the black clouds closed in, Shui Yuntian and Murong Feng were startled to see the people before them. Twin Star Island Li family? The two said simultaneously. Li Qianquan and an important elder of the Li family. There was no reason for Murong Feng to not recognize them. As for Hong Lei, Murong Feng had never seen him before. Shui Yuntian was so angry that he laughed. He never thought that the Li family would chase after them from so far away. When had the Shui family ever harmed the Li family? Was it worth it for them to kill them all the way to Murong Island? The Murong family's elders slowly recognized the origin of the people and were all shocked. In the Sword Gazebo's territorial waters, it was extremely rare for two islands to have an all-out war. The Li family's large-scale invasion was truly unexpected. However, they quickly regained their senses and stared at Shui Yuntian. Without a doubt, the Li family was here for the Shui family. Shui Yuntian, look at what you've done. Why aren't you bringing your clansmen out of Murong Island? Could it be that you really want to see my Murong clan members fight for your Shui family for no reason? Take your foreign tribe's divine skill and get lost. The Murong family cannot afford to take care of the Shui family. The crowd was indignant. Even Murong Feng was caught in a dilemma. Were they really going to fight the Li family for the Shui family? Even if they lost a single member of the Murong family, it would be a loss that could not be recovered. Brother Murong, there's no need to feel troubled. Shui Yuntian smiled. His smile was filled with relief. The Shui family's fate has come to an end. The Shui family has no face to drag the Murong family down. He slowly walked out and took a deep breath. His eyes suddenly became fierce as he shouted, Where are the Shui family members? The Shui family members who witnessed this scene knew that their time of death had come. Instead, they mustered their courage and followed Shui Yuntian out of Murong Island. Murong Feng's face was filled with shame and reluctance. He said to the Murong family members behind him, Forget it. I'm not going to be the family head anymore. I'll personally send my good friend off. He threw down the patriarch's token and rushed over to stand beside Shui Yuntian. Shui Yuntian was moved. Brother Murong, Murong Feng laughed bitterly. We've been friends for many years. Let me send you off one last time. This was probably the last time they fought side by side. Tears rolled down Shui Yuntian's eyes. He laughed and said, Ha, I can die without regrets. He shouted at the approaching dark clouds, Li family bastards, if you want the Shui family to die, don't think you'll have it easy too. With a roar, he pretended to pounce. Li Qianquan, who was rushing over, was startled. He quickly said, Brother Shui, please wait. You've misunderstood. I'm here to invite you back. The sky above Murong Island became strange for a short while. The Shui family members who were unafraid of death suddenly froze on the spot. Invite them back? Go back where? Shui Yuntian was also stunned. He was a little dumbfounded, but he quickly understood. He laughed angrily. Li, are you still trying to play tricks? Die. Li Qianquan did not dare to fight Shui Yuntian head-on when he saw Shui Yuntian's suicidal stance. He said hurriedly, Brother Shui, I'm really here to invite you back to Twin Star Island. You have to believe me. Hey, Brother Shui, don't hit. Li Qianquan spat out a mouthful of blood from the slap. He did not fight back. Instead, he went behind Hong Lei and said, Envoy Hong, speak quickly. Now is not the time to pretend to be mute. Hong Lei originally wanted to hide in the crowd. He did not want to come out and make a fool of himself. He did not expect that Li Qianquan would push him out. With a gloomy face, Hong Lei glared at him and walked out reluctantly. When he looked at Shui Yuntian, his insufferably arrogant face actually squeezed out a smile, and he stuttered, Shui. Patriarch Shui, he's right. You can't trust him, but you should trust Envoy Jian Xian, right? Shui Yuntian was stunned. Shui Yuntian had sensed that something was wrong when Li Qianquan only parried and did not fight back. Then, he saw Hong Lei's deflated expression. He could not help but be surprised. Based on his understanding of Hong Lei, he was an extremely prideful person. He would not lower his status for the sake of a scheme. He stopped his attack and said coldly, Li, what are you playing at? Li Qianquan rubbed his aching chest and said with a wry smile, I mean exactly what I said. We are here to invite you and the Shui family back. Shui Yuntian was confused. What was going on? He looked at Hong Lei again. Envoy Hong, you forced us to leave Twin Star Island. How do you explain that? Hong Lei felt uncomfortable under everyone's attention. But when he thought of Mu Songhai's threat, he felt a chill run down his spine. He said, This envoy. I didn't handle it properly. I realized my mistake, so I came to invite Patriarch Shui and the other clansmen back. Humph! Shui Yuntian snorted and interrupted him. If you don't explain clearly, don't think that we will go back. Who knows what you have up your sleeves? Maybe you are ambushing us along the way. Instead of that, we might as well perish together with you now. Both of them looked embarrassed. No one had the face to say anything. In the end, it was Li Qianquan who said shamelessly, It's your son. He became the Star Pavilion's appraiser. The Star Pavilion's master came personally. Li Qianquan's face was full of bitterness. He begged, Brother Shui, I beg you, please go back. The lives of my family depend on Brother Shui. Quack. Chapter 1605. What? The young master of the Shui family had become an appraiser of the Starry Pavilion? All right, it was the mysterious Star Pavilion's master who showed up in person. If not for Special Envoy Hong's solemn expression, they would have suspected that Li Qianquan was joking. Not to mention the strict requirements to become an appraiser of the Starry Pavilion, just the appearance of the Starry Pavilion master was like a legend. It's true. Hong Lei's expression was sullen, but he forced a smile and cupped his hands at Shui Yuntian. Shui clan master, please go back for the sake of Jianxian. My life is in your hands. The whole place was deathly silent. It was actually true. Not to mention the outsiders who felt like they were dreaming, even the members of the Shui clan were dumbstruck, and their minds went blank. The fastest to accept reality was Shui Yuntian. He had long known that Su Yu was not an ordinary person. But even so, he was still stunned for a long time. After a long time, the members of the Shui family came back to their senses. Elder Qing Yi was so excited that his whole body was trembling. He ignored Li Qianquan, who had been hostile toward him not long ago, and went forward to grab his hand. You said that the young master has become an appraiser of the Starry Pavilion? Li Qianquan said dejectedly, Yes. Ha ha ha. Elder Qing Yi laughed wildly, his laughter echoing throughout Murong Island. The rest of the people could not help but howl with excitement. They hugged each other, cried, and laughed together, recounting the ups and downs of their lives in the past 6 months. The heavens have taken pity on us. We can go back now. When we go back, I will definitely turn over a new leaf and cultivate diligently. I will not suffer today's humiliation again. Haha, the heavens have given us a second chance. The Xue family will not repeat the same mistakes. The crowd was excited. Elder Qingyi was still laughing loudly. Look, how happy is Elder Qingyi. Wait, why is he twitching all over? He's even spitting. Oh no, Elder Qingyi can't stop laughing. Knock him out, quick! Bang, with Elder Qingyi unconscious, the scene finally quieted down. Tears rolled down Xue Yuntian's cheeks as he bowed in the direction of the Xue family. Ancestors of the Xue family, we're back! Li Qianquan and Hong Lei both heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, it was not too late. After a brief moment of astonishment, Murong Feng was genuinely happy for his old friend. He laughed heartily and said, "Congratulations, Brother Xue. It looks like I'll have to send you off on your last journey. I wonder how long you'll have to wait, hee." Xue Yuntian also burst into laughter. "Isn't it all because of my son?" Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the 10 elders of the Murong clan flew over and congratulated. "Congratulations, Patriarch Xue. Your son has joined the Starry Pavilion and become an appraiser. From now on, no one in the Sword Pavilion C will dare to provoke your clan. Haha, this is truly a cause for celebration. Our Xue and Murong families should interact more in the future. We can't become distant just because of the distance, right?" "That's right. Our 2 families have been friends for over 100 years. They laughed and complimented Xue Yuntian as if they were not the ones who had shown their ugly and cold-blooded side. Murong Feng secretly shook his head when he saw this. However, he naturally hoped that the Murong clan could maintain a good relationship with the Xue clan. After some thought, he took out the foreign tribe's divine art and returned it to Xue Yuntian. He said, "It seems like the Xue clan doesn't need the Murong clan's protection. The deal is invalid. These divine arts are yours." To be honest, he was a little reluctant to give them away. He could feel the significance of these divine arts. As long as the Murong clan was given enough time to cultivate these divine arts, their overall strength would definitely skyrocket. Now, he could only return them. Unexpectedly, Xue Yuntian waved his hand and returned the divine arts. He said with a calm expression, "Brother Murong, please accept them. Take them as a token of appreciation for the care the Murong clan has given us over the past 3 days, and for the half of the nautical resources." Murong Feng's expression tensed up when he realized the hidden meaning behind his words. He asked, "Brother Xue, what do you mean?" Xue Yuntian expressionlessly looked at the smiling elders and the Murong clan members who were complimenting him. He said, "If the Murong clan is in trouble one day, Brother Murong, you can lead your clan to Twin Star Island. For the sake of our friendship, I will take care of them for you. I won't ask for anything from you. As for the alliance between our 2 clans, I think we should end it here," Xue Yuntian said tiredly. The Murong clan elders and Murong clan members' expressions froze. They were speechless. The strange thing was, they could not refute him at all. They could not even find a reason to hate him. This was because they had used their actions to break the alliance between the 2 clans. They had also taught Xue Yuntian what the Xue clan should do when the Murong clan was in trouble. Murong Feng said anxiously, "Brother Xue, please don't lower yourself to their level." "Our clans," Xue Yuntian waved his hand and sighed. He patted Murong Feng's shoulder and said, "Good brother, if someone tries to harm you, I will fight with you at all costs. But as for the Murong clan, I am sorry. I really can't find a reason to help them." Murong Feng could not refute him. He turned around and glared at them. "That's what you do for not helping me. Now, the Xue clan is rich, and you can't even climb up to them." It was not hard to imagine how much benefits the Murong clan could get if they kept the alliance. At least, as long as the Shui clan was around, whoever dared to touch the Murong clan would have to think twice about the Shui clan and the Star Pavilion. But now? They had thrown away this life-saving card. Right now, he wished he could beat all these short-sighted people to death. Shui Yuntian held his fists together and said, "Brother Murong, farewell." Murong Feng had mixed feelings as he watched them leave with a bitter smile. "Uncle Shui, wait." Murong Qingqing carefully walked out of the crowd. She looked shy, which was the complete opposite of her aggressive attitude from before. Shui Yuntian stopped and said, "Miss Qingqing, what's the matter?" Murong Qingqing asked politely, "Uncle Shui, may I ask if the appraiser of the Star Pavilion is the young Master Xuelei?" She subconsciously thought that Xuelei was much more talented than Xueyu. If there was anyone who could be chosen by the Star Pavilion, it would be Xuelei, right? Shui Yuntian did not change his expression as he said lightly, "What are you trying to say?" A trace of shyness flashed across her face as she said, "Uncle Shui, you might not know this, but Xuelei is also my friend." Shui Yuntian's lips curled up into an almost imperceptible sneer as he said lightly, "Oh? Is that so? But Xuelei has a family. There is no future between you two." "That won't happen." Murong Qingqing's face turned even redder as she said shyly, "I am willing to be Xuelei's concubine." Concubine was the lowest existence in the Sword Pavilion Ocean. It could be said that no normal girl would be willing to be a concubine. The Star Pavilion's appraiser, who was personally invited by the leader of the pavilion, would have a bright future ahead of him. He would probably be much more powerful than any young master. Even if she were to be his concubine, it would still be better than the young master's wife. This was something that Murong Qingqing had thought about very clearly. "Is that so?" Shui Yuntian said lightly. "Unfortunately, Xuelei has already betrayed the Shui family. I can't help you." Murong Qingqing froze. Betrayed? Then who is the young master they were talking about? She pointed at Hong Lei and Li Qianquan. Shui Yuntian said, "I only have 2 sons. Which one do you think would have joined the Star Pavilion?" Hearing him, not only Murong Qingqing, even Murong Feng was shocked. "You mean, the one who was really invited by the Star Pavilion is Xueyu?" Shui Yuntian chuckled, his face filled with pride. "Impossible! How could it be him?" Murong Qingqing screamed. Shui Yuntian put away his smile, looked at her, shook his head, and turned to leave. "Uncle Shui, I was confused. Can we re-sign the marriage contract?" Murong Qingqing hurried to stop him. Murong Feng and the other master's eyes brightened as well. If the marriage contract was still there, the relationship between the two families would be maintained. Unfortunately, Shui Yuntian did not even turn his head. "Miss Qingqing, before you forced my uncle to break the contract, I told you that Xueyu is different from the rest of the Shui family. He has a bright future ahead of him. If you insist on breaking the contract, you will regret it. Now it is too late to regret. Miss Qingqing, do you think you can still match up to Xueyu? You are on your own." Watching the Shui family leave, Murong Qingqing's eyes lost focus as she sat down on the ground. A Star Pavilion's appraiser's fiancé had been rejected by her. Now she wanted to renew the marriage contract, but she could no longer match up to him. She had always wanted to marry a glorious young genius with a bright future. But in the end, she had missed it and gained nothing. "I don't accept this. I, Murong Qingqing, have the talent and the looks. I don't believe that Xueyu would reject me." Murong Qingqing stood up and gritted her teeth. "I want to beg Xueyu face to face." Murong Feng slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were covered with a cold intent. "What a disgrace! Get down on your knees." A beam of sharp, killing intent shook Murong Qingqing to the point that her legs went soft, and she knelt down on the spot. "If it were not for you acting on your own and rudely breaking the contract, our Murong family would be supported by the Star Pavilion right now. Because of your selfishness, how much of our family's future have been ruined?" Murong Feng's hatred was hard to calm down. Speak. Who let you out of your solitary confinement? And who told you to break the contract? Murong Qingqing, who should have been solitary confinement and had no idea about the outside world, suddenly showed up. There must be someone helping her secretly. Murong Qingqing knew that she had made a big mistake. Her face was pale, and she did not dare to breathe loudly. Murong Feng was furious. His cold eyes scanned the crowd and locked onto Master Blue Cloud, who had a weird expression on his face, and said coldly, "It was you?" Master Blue Cloud had never seen Murong Feng this angry before. He swallowed his saliva and said, I did not expect the Shui family to make a comeback, and I did not expect—" Boom! Murong Feng suddenly attacked, his palm piercing through Master Blue Cloud's chest, almost taking his life. The fierce and ruthless cultivation shocked all the elders present to the point that they kept quiet out of fear. Master Blue Cloud. Murong Feng's eyes revealed a killing intent. When Shui Yu was on the island, I had already warned you not to cause trouble. You turned a deaf ear and caused a huge disaster. The Murong family cannot tolerate you anymore. Take your precious granddaughter and scram immediately. Leader I. Master Blue Cloud begged. Chapter 1606. With fear in his eyes, Master Qingyun left the Murong family in regret. Murong Qingqing was also ashamed as she supported her grandfather and left dejectedly. Grandpa, it's all my fault. I only thought about myself, which caused you to be kicked out of the family. At this point, Murong Qingqing seemed to have woken up from a dream as she cried. Master Qingyun touched her hair and said, "Silly girl, it's all my fault. I made you miss out on such a great marriage." Murong Qingqing felt bitter as she looked at the Murong Island that was getting further and further away. Grandpa, where should we go? How about we go to the Feather God clan? Tuobaluan covets my beauty, so he should take us in. Master Qingyun, who had once tried to persuade Murong Qingqing to marry Tuobaluan, shook his head. Tuobaluan has his eyes on the Murong family behind you, which is why he is willing to marry you. Now that you have been kicked out of the Murong family, Tuobaluan will only treat you as a plaything. Unexpectedly, Murong Qingqing did not refute. Being in a big family, she understood the word benefit very well. Then who should we rely on? The world is so big, but there is no place for us to go? However, Master Qingyun's eyes shone brightly as he said, "Let's go find Shui Yu." Murong Qingqing was surprised. "Why do we need to find him?" Master Qingyun forced a smile. "Why do you think the leader left us alive? With the mistakes they had made, they should be punished even more severely. Leader wants us to go beg Shui Yu, so that the Shui family's resentment can be resolved?" Murong Qingqing was not stupid, so she understood immediately. Master Qingyun said, "Whoever started the trouble should untie it. If Shui Yu can forgive us, it is not impossible for the Shui family and the Murong family to reconcile. You should know that Shui Yu has the final say in the Shui family now." Murong Qingqing's eyes brightened as she clenched her teeth. "This happened because of me. I will definitely ask for his forgiveness." Star Pavilion. Su Yu followed Mu Songhai back to the random Star Island. Many of the appraisers from the Star Pavilion came to welcome them. "Welcome, Pavilion Leader." Lightly nodding, Mu Songhai did not look away as he led Su Yu back to the Star Pavilion. The managers and appraisers of the pavilion were all summoned to attend the meeting. "This old one has been gone for several days. Was there an urgent matter?" Mu Songhai asked. She looked towards a middle-aged woman who was dressed appropriately in palace attire. Her expression was respectful. Her name was Yen Chonghong, and she was the deputy pavilion master promoted by Mu Songhai. Vice Pavilion Master Yen Chonghong bowed and said, "Pavilion Master, there is nothing urgent in the pavilion. However, there is a piece of news that I need to inform Pavilion Master." Mu Songhai said. Yen Chonghong clapped her hands, and a few servants carried in a mangled corpse. "Pavilion Master, in the past few months, News of an unfamiliar creature eating humans has been spreading in the nearby seas. Yen Changhong's expression turned solemn. It happened near all the major islands, and the victims were all eaten by some kind of evil spirit. This matter has made everyone anxious, and no one dares to casually leave the island. As a result, the number of people coming to Chaotic Star Island has decreased sharply, and business has become much more sluggish. This subordinate personally went to the nearby islands and asked the island master for a victim's corpse. However, after observing it for several days, I still don't know what kind of evil spirit injured it, so I asked Pavilion Master. Mu Songhai frowned slightly. A man-eating evil spirit? She narrowed her old eyes and examined the corpse. At first, her eyes were filled with confusion. Suddenly, she flicked her finger and hit a certain part of the corpse. A pitch-black tooth embedded in the rib shot out and froze the corpse in place. Mu Songhai's pupils constricted. Even with her strength, she couldn't help but look solemn. This is a secret technique that has been lost since the ancient times, the nine-god body. Hearing this, Yen Changhong's eyes were filled with confusion. Nine-god body? Forgive this subordinate for being ignorant and inexperienced, but I have never heard of it. Mu Songhai stared at the pitch-black tooth and said, "It's normal that you don't know. That's something that happened during the era of ancient god Jilong. It's too long ago." The nine-god body was a powerful and unpredictable creature. It was born with the souls of the 9 great ferocious beasts of the ancient times. It could grow stronger by devouring the flesh and blood of other creatures. If ancient god Jilong hadn't subdued it, I'm afraid it would have grown into the most ferocious creature in the world, on par with Tao Tai. Hearing this, Yen Changhong was shocked. On par with Tao Tai? Wouldn't our random star island be in danger? Mu Songhai shook his head. That's not necessarily the case. Judging from this lost tooth, the body of 9 gods should still be in the process of transformation. It can only be regarded as a young body. Its strength should be at the first Heaven Cave World Master. If we can find it, we can kill it in advance. However, the 9 god body has long been extinct with the disappearance of the ancient god realm of Jilong. Why did it suddenly appear in the world? Suddenly, she noticed that Su Yu, who was beside her, had a slight change in his breath. Looking sideways, she saw a trace of surprise on Su Yu's face. Her eyes flashed, and she said, "Master Shui, do you know something?" Su Yu shook his head and said, "I was just surprised by the power of the 9 god body." In fact, he was shocked that the so-called 9 god body came from the god realm of the 9 Dragons Valley. Could it be that other creatures besides him had also escaped from the Tao Tai's cage that day? He couldn't help but recall that he had witnessed some creatures stepping out of the door of the cage with his own eyes. He didn't know if the 9 god body was among them. Moreover, speaking of the 9 god body, Su Yu remembered a person who was born with the 9 spirit body. The 9 god body and the 9 spirit body were only one word apart. Mu Songhai didn't doubt it. He said, "Don't worry, you are in the Star Pavilion, the 9 god body will never dare to violate you." Yen Changhong sized Su Yu up curiously. She had been wondering since the beginning. The pavilion master left the Star Pavilion without saying a word. Why did he suddenly return today and bring back an ordinary young man? "Pavilion master, who is this young man?" Yen Changhong asked cautiously. The rest of the people had already noticed Su Yu and were asking questions. A smile appeared on Mu Songhai's face. He said, "Haha, I forgot to introduce him to all of you. From today on, this young man is the treasure appraiser of the Star Pavilion, Master Shui." What? Even Deputy Pavilion Master Yen Changhong couldn't help but be surprised. The selection of treasure appraisers in the Star Pavilion was very strict. Only those who had made a name for themselves were qualified. Before joining the Star Pavilion, which of the treasure appraisers present didn't have a specialty that ordinary people didn't have? He was so young, could he have the specialty of the unrivaled sword pavilion? Although everyone was confused, how could they dare to question the pavilion master? They all smiled and congratulated him. Yen Changhong smiled sweetly. Haha, that's a cause for celebration. To be honest, I'm tired of looking at the group of old men in the treasure appraisal room. It's a coincidence that a handsome young man has come. Her teasing words made everyone laugh, even though they were all fake smiles to flatter her and Mu Songhai. Mu Songhai chuckled. Changhong, you are responsible for accompanying Master Shui on a tour of the Star Pavilion's treasure appraisal room. Then, you can apply for an appraiser's identity card. She stood up and gave Suyu a kind smile. I still have some matters to attend to. If you have any requests, you can ask Changhong directly. Senior, please go ahead, Suyu said. When Mu Songhai walked past Yen Changhong, he paused slightly. Yen Changhong seemed to have gotten a hint and nodded her snow-white chin. When everyone left, Yen Changhong smiled at Suyu. Master Shui, please come with me. The treasure appraisal room of the Star Pavilion was the most important core area. The 3 inner and 3 inner floors were all heavily guarded. There were as many as 9 Level 1 Cavern World seniors in the open and in the dark. In addition, the treasure appraisers were all big shots who had been famous for a long time. Their strength was not weak. If anyone broke into this place, it would be no different from courting death. After layers of identity verification, Suyu was finally able to see the true face of the treasure appraisal room. It was a huge cavern world that was artificially created into 13 continents, each of which was guarded by a master-level figure. On the continents, there were countless treasure appraisers' assistants, busily assisting the appraisers to identify the treasures sent in. It was worth mentioning that each industry had its own specialization. Each continent's treasure appraiser was responsible for different projects. For example, some were responsible for the appraisal of divine weapons, some were responsible for the appraisal of divine elixirs, and some were responsible for the appraisal of secret manuals. Master Shui, what are you good at? Yen Changhong asked tentatively. Suyu looked behind him as he pondered. His intuition told him that someone was examining everything in front of him through some kind of artifact. In a secret room of the Star Pavilion, Mu Songhai was staring at a simple and unadorned bronze mirror. The person reflected in the mirror was Suyu. A gray figure stood beside her and said, "We'll know whether this brat has true ability or not after a test. If he doesn't have the qualifications to be an appraiser, I'm afraid we can't accept him even if Lord Who gives the order." Mu Songhai nodded coldly. He better pray that he has some specialties that the Star Pavilion will value. Otherwise, he and the Shui family will be finished. The higher they were praised, the harder they fell. Li Qiankuan, Hong Lei, the Murong family, which one of them was not trampled by the Shui family? Once the Shui family was no good, they would step on them 100 times more until they were crushed. In the cavern world, Suyu pondered for a while and said, "Yes, divine weapons." His answer was not surprising. He had attracted the attention of the Star Pavilion because he had found the beauty under the moonlight among the defective goods. Yen Changhong's eyes flashed and she said, "What a coincidence! There are 3 treasure appraisers responsible for the appraisal of divine weapons. As a major category, there were 3 treasure appraisers responsible for the appraisal of divine weapons. One of them is the craftsman known as the Limitless Craftsman, Dongfang Mo. The other is the number 1 collector of divine weapons, Jin Buhuan. The last one is even more peculiar. He was trained as an artifact spirit and knows all the divine weapons in the world as well as his own body," Yen Changhong slowly introduced, constantly observing Suyu's expression. Unfortunately, Suyu's face was calm, and his eyes were unruffled. Yen Changhong was disappointed. She could not judge Suyu's mood at the moment, so she tried to say, "Master Shui, the divine weapon appraisers are all famous figures. When you visit them later, there may be some difficulties. Master Shui, you must be mentally prepared." Difficulties? Is it a test? Suyu was well aware of it. He still said calmly, "All right, I also want to meet the treasure appraisers and see what is so special about the Star Pavilion's treasure appraisers." Such a confident expression caused Yen Changhong to be slightly startled. Did this kid understand what she was implying? He was going to have an open competition with 3 famous treasure appraisers. How could he be so confident? Chapter 1607. He flew to the continent, accompanied by the 3 appraisers. The 3 of them looked at each other, exchanging glances silently. Suyu had chosen the continent for the divine weapon appraisal because he was an expert in appraising divine weapons. To the 3 appraisers in charge of the divine weapons, Suyu was undoubtedly a new competitor. How could they accept this calmly? After traveling for a while, Jin Buhuan said with a smile, "How is it, Master Shui? Are you satisfied with our work? Why don't you give us some pointers?" Dongfang Mo and the artifact spirit turned their heads, their eyes filled with contempt and sarcasm. What right did a young man in his 30s have to be on equal footing with them? If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be able to get out of this embarrassing situation. Who had the right to give pointers to the 3 famous appraisers? Yen Changhong shook her head secretly. The reactions of the 3 appraisers were more intense than she had expected. It seemed that Suyu would be in trouble. However, to everyone's surprise, not only was Suyu not fearful, but he did not even have the slightest bit of modesty. He said, "Not bad." Not just the 3 appraisers, but even Yen Changhong was obviously stunned. Dongfang Mo laughed angrily. "Then I hope Master Shui can give us some pointers, so that the 3 of us can learn a thing or two and see what it means to say that there is always someone better out there." Suyu shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly. "Sure." After thinking for a while, Suyu pointed at the edge of the continent, which was piled up into thousands of mountains of defective divine weapons. He said, "Those should be the defective divine weapons that the 3 of you have personally eliminated, right?" Jin Buhuan put on a fake smile and said, "That's right. Are you planning to find the treasures that the 3 of us have missed? If you have such a plan, I think you should give up as soon as possible. It won't be so easy to pick up the treasures that we have missed." The artifact spirit was a living creature formed by a mass of light and shadow. He stared at Suyu and snorted coldly. "I know who you are. Aren't you the Shuiyu who found the beauty under the moonlight and the heaven-splitting spear from the defective weapons? I'm sorry to tell you that the reason there were treasures that were missed from the defective weapons was because the 3 of us happened to be out, and the appraisal work was handed over to our subordinates. If the 3 of us were here, this would not have happened." Suyu wasn't surprised at all and he said, "You don't need to explain anything, I'll know once I see it." "Haha, it has been a long time since this old man has met someone as unrestrained as Grandmaster Shui. Just as well, allow me to broaden my horizons." The corners of Jin Buhuan's mouth curled as he said. Accompanied by the others, they flew to the edge of the continent, above the mountains of defective goods. "Grandmaster Shui, please. We're all waiting for your guidance." Dongfang Mo crossed his arms and said in a strange tone. Suyu did not say a word, silently inspecting the defective goods below him. There were as many defective goods as there were hairs on an ox, and it would take a long time to look through them all. Half a day had passed, and Suyu was still observing the area. He had not discovered anything. At this point, the 3 grandmasters looked at each other and shrugged with a smile. "Master Shui, if you really can't find it, then forget it. It's one thing to be confident, but you must also have the strength to match your strength." Jin Buhuan was always smiling. Dongfang Mo chuckled coldly while the artifact spirit said disdainfully, "Boring? Deputy Pavilion Master, the next time you invite someone over, at least bring someone with some foundation." Yen Changhong was helpless, and her eyes were full of disappointment as she looked at Suyu. According to the Pavilion Master's secret instructions just now, if Suyu did not have the real ability, then she would just give him a random excuse and ask him to leave the Starry Pavilion, never to be hired again. She sighed silently and said in a regretful tone, "Mr. Shui, how about we come again next time?" Unknowingly, she had changed the way she addressed him, Mr., instead of Grandmaster. Inside the secret chamber, on the other side of the mirror, Mu Songhai's eyes turned cold and indifferent. He said, "What a waste of the pavilion's time. Lord whose judgment may not always be correct." However, at this moment, Su Yu did not bat an eyelid. He continuously shot out a streak of mortal fairy's strength into the mountains of defective goods below him. With a shake, a defective item was hooked out and fell into Su Yu's palm. It was a golden whip, broken into 3 pieces, which had lost its spirituality. The golden whip was originally a fairy-level treasure, but its grade had fallen to even a spirit-level lower grade. If it was thrown on the ground, it would probably be picked up by someone to recycle its materials. There were many marks on the surface of the golden whip. There were traces of ice, flames, hammering, and so on. These were all marks left behind by the appraisers. This item could be said to have been completely appraised by them, and was worthless. Golden snake bone whip? The artifact's spirit stopped in his tracks and sized it up. He said confidently, "Based on my senses as an artifact spirit, this item has been destroyed from the inside out. Not only has it lost its spirituality, but even the internal material structure has been destroyed into a mess. Not to mention the possibility that there might be something hidden inside." There was a hint of a sneer in his words. "I'm looking forward to seeing if Master Shui can find any more treasures inside." Jin Buhuan and Dongfang Mo were also full of confidence. Su Yu clenched his 5 fingers and held the golden snake bone whip in his hand. He crushed it inch by inch, turning it into powder. Indeed, as the artifact spirit said, the internal material structure had been destroyed and could be crushed easily. The artifact spirit had a look of disdain on his face, as if to say, "I knew it, didn't I? Master Shui, it seems like you didn't find any treasures inside," the artifact spirit said with a smile. "What a pity. I wanted to receive personal guidance from Master Shui." Jin Buhuan shook his head and said sincerely, "Young people are good at everything, but they are still young and impetuous. Don't be so arrogant next time. Otherwise, you'll be the one losing your dignity." Dongfang Mo scolded coldly, "Ignorant? What a waste of my time." The 3 appraisers turned around, leaving Su Yu with an unforgettable experience. Yen Changhong sighed silently and thought to herself, "To think that I thought for a moment that he would find some treasures inside the golden snake bone whip. It seems like I was overthinking it." She was about to speak when she saw that Su Yu's expression was calm. He was still crushing the remaining golden snake bone whip into dust. She noticed that Su Yu did not throw the dust away. Instead, he gathered it together. Then, Su Yu opened his mouth and blew out a gust of air, dispersing the impurities in the dust and leaving behind a golden powder. With a wave of his big sleeves, the golden powder danced in the air and stuck together. At first, Yen Changhong was surprised. She could only see the golden powder stuck together in a messy manner. She could not see anything strange about it. But then, Yen Changhong's eyes gradually narrowed and she was shocked. This is the golden snake whip technique that the Golden Snake Clan has never taught to outsiders? The golden powder stuck together to form a picture. On the picture, the golden powder was arranged in rows of clear incantations. The first incantation was the words, "Golden Snake Whip Technique." Unfortunately, many of the incantations were incomplete. Hearing that, the 3 appraisers who had already turned around and stared at the scene before them in disbelief. The artifact spirit was shocked. Divine Weapon Book Collection? It was not the first time they had come across such a method of hiding treasures. However, it was the first time they had seen the incantation being crushed into materials and mixed into a divine weapon. What really shocked them was that the 3 of them had examined it countless times, but none of them had noticed anything amiss. Yet, Su Yu had managed to identify the incantation from among the thousands of defective items. This reflected Su Yu's divine weapon appraisal skills, which were far superior to the best. He was definitely not as ignorant as they had imagined. As they stared at the incomplete golden snake whip technique, the three of them were shocked. The reason why it was incomplete was because their inspection methods were too rough, which destroyed the golden snake whip technique. Secondly, it had been stored for too long, which caused the golden powder in the golden snake whip technique to be missing. If this item had fallen into Su Yu's hands earlier, he would have obtained an extremely valuable complete incantation. Inside the secret chamber, the starry cabinet master's indifferent face flashed with surprise. He really has some skill. I just don't know if it's due to luck or ability. The three appraisers stared at Su Yu, especially the artifact spirit, whose eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. He said, "We deal with numerous affairs every day, appraising hundreds of millions of treasures. There are bound to be times when we make a mistake. It's not a big deal to only find one item." Su Yu nodded. "Yes, I have the same thoughts as well. No matter how brilliant a master is, if he deals with too many goods, there will be times when he makes a mistake. So, I think that our pointless sparring should end here, right?" He had no intention of starting a dispute, nor did he intend to hurt their pride. However, Su Yu's appearance had already caused them to lose face, and they were unable to extricate themselves from the situation. "Shui, stop pretending to be a good person in front of us. If you want to give us pointers, we'll have to see if you're really capable," the artifact spirit shouted, pointing at the center of the continent, where there was an enormous mountain range. All of the treasures that had just arrived were waiting for the three appraisers to appraise them one by one. "Let's compete again. Let's see who can choose the most valuable treasure among them. How about that?" The artifact spirit was aggressive. Jin Buhuan put on a fake smile and said, "Master Shui, I'm afraid it's not enough to convince us with just the golden snake whip technique. Who knows if you're just lucky?" Dongfang Mo sneered as well. "Exactly. If you really have the ability, why don't we compete again?" Su Yu was silent for a moment. He looked at the three of them and said, "I think we can end it here. I have no intention of convincing the three of you, nor do I have any intention of competing with the three of you. There's no need to be so hostile." "Humph! Who do you think you are? What right do you have to compete with us? I'm just doing you a favor and giving you a fair chance to compete," the artifact spirit said domineeringly. Jin Buhuan and Dongfang Mo also had arrogant looks on their faces. "If you don't dare to compete, then get lost. Our divine armament appraisal continent does not welcome incompetent people." An ear-piercing sound entered his ears. Even a clay figurine would have flames, let alone Su Yu. He had given in time and time again, but the other party had no sense of propriety and was taking advantage of him. Su Yu's eyes turned cold as he said indifferently, "There's no need to compete with spiritual abilities. Since the three of you feel so good about yourselves, why don't you take a look at these items?" Swoosh. He turned around and looked at the mountain of defective items below him. More than 100 defective items flew out. Su Yu pointed at the 7 or 8 items in front of him and said, "This is the war rod carved with the 9 techniques of the heavenly star race. As long as you compare it to the starlight, you can see the 9 techniques in the projection, but you've treated it like trash. This is the 10,000 worm egg of the savage 9-headed worm. It contains 10,000 sleeping worm eggs, but you've treated it like an ordinary fossil. This is the lid of Mayba's coffin, but it's actually a key that can lead to Mayba's grave. It's a pity that you've abandoned it here." This is, Su Yu listed the 9 defective items that were covered in dust in one breath. Chapter 1608. Don't the three of you want to compete? There are still more than 100 treasures that you missed. Why don't we compete? Su Yu said indifferently. At the side, Yen Changhong was already extremely shocked. In half a day's time, Shui Yu had found more than just the golden snake whip, but more than 100 treasures. He only took out the golden snake bone whip and did not take out all the treasures he found. He was actually thinking about the reputation of the three appraisers and did not want to embarrass them too much. After that, Shuiyu was even more modest and cautious, taking the initiative to compromise. The result? The three of them did not appreciate it, but were overbearing instead. Now, more than 100 treasures that they missed were like 100 slaps to the face, making them feel ashamed. It was normal for 1 or 2 items to be wrong. But more than 100 items were enough to show that their appraising skills were limited. Looking at the three of them in disappointment, Suyu took to the air and said indifferently, "If you can't think of anything, come and ask me. Seeing that we are all members of the Stellar Tower, I will give you free pointers." His words came true. Suyu really had the ability to give them pointers. After Yen Changhong was surprised, she was ecstatic. Her intuition told her that the Stellar Tower had indeed found a genius. In the secret room, Mu Songhai's indifferent face had long been replaced by surprise. After a long time, she concealed her surprise and said in admiration, "Master, whose eyes are as shrewd as always. You can see that this child is extraordinary at a glance." At this point, she no longer had any doubts about Suyu's ability, and she smiled happily. "Fortunately, I listened to Master Hu and went to invite him personally. Otherwise, I would have missed a genius appraiser. But, he is so young, where did he get such great experience?" Flying to the sky of the cavern world, Yen Changhong's expression was much more respectful, and she addressed him as Master again. "Master Shui, please follow me to apply for your identity jade token." Suyu asked in return, "Oh? Don't I need to visit the rest of the continents?" Yen Changhong was stunned, and said, "The appraisal of the rest of the continents is not closely related to divine weapons. Master Shui's ability may not be of much use." "Ability?" Suyu looked at her. "Oh, I forgot to say, appraising divine weapons is not my area of expertise." What? Such a superior appraisal level was not his area of expertise? Even Mu Songhai, who was peeping at this place, cried out in shock. Yen Changhong realized that she had lost her composure. She quickly hid her surprise and said, "Master Shui, what did you just say?" Suyu smiled with his hands clasped behind his back. He had the aura of an emperor who was guiding the world. "What I mean is that I have a certain level of appraisal skills for elixirs, secret manuals, materials, and so on. Appraising divine weapons is the most mediocre of all. What I'm best at is the foreign language." Hearing that Suyu was proficient in all kinds of appraisal, Yen Changhong felt as if the world had been turned upside down. It was not that there were no all-rounders like Suyu. There were a few in the headquarters of the Star Pavilion, but none of them were so young. After learning that Suyu was proficient in the alien language, Yen Changhong was shocked. "Master Shui, if I did not hear wrongly, are you saying that you are proficient in the alien language?" "Yes." Suyu replied affirmatively. Yen Changhong was excited. There were countless living beings in the great beginning realm, and there were tens of thousands of races. Each race had a language that had been passed down since the creation of the world, and it belonged only to their race. Due to the secrecy of certain inheritances, more than half of the races had never passed down their race's language to outsiders. Even if the divine techniques of their races were passed down, it would be useless to outsiders who did not understand their language. Hence, the great beginning realm had given birth to some strong martial artists who made a living from this. They were obsessed with secretly learning the languages of various races, and then translated their inheritances to obtain shocking benefits. However, secretly learning a race's language required risking one's life. A strong martial artist who could secretly learn 10 languages was definitely an outstanding talent in his field. Such people were rare. Hence, when Yen Changhong learned that Suyu was proficient in the alien language, her excitement was imaginable. At least, there was no such talent in the Star Pavilion branch. "Master Shui, may I ask how many alien languages you are proficient in?" Yen Changhong asked. Suyu thought for a moment. All these years, He was proficient in all the languages that Yun Yazi had taught him. He was proficient in all the languages of the races, regardless of whether they were passed down to outsiders or not. There should be more than 10,000 languages. 100, Suyu said. 100. Yen Changhong gasped and took out a book in surprise. The names of 10,000 races were recorded on it, and she said, "Which languages of the races are you proficient in?" Suyu flipped through a few pages, and casually ticked off 100 names. After reading, Yen Changhong was pleasantly surprised. Oh my God! There are actually 3 races that do not impart languages to outsiders. How did you do it? I learned it secretly, Suyu said ambiguously. Whoosh, a strong aura penetrated the cavern world and descended. Master Shui, are you really proficient in these alien languages? Mu Songhai stopped prying and appeared personally, his face full of joy. Suyu nodded. If you have these alien languages, I can translate them for you. Someone, bring the alien languages collected in the pavilion, and let Master Shui have a look. Mu Songhai was too excited and was eager to verify. The verification result was without suspense. Mu Songhai held a book that had accurately translated the alien languages, and was overjoyed. Haha, Lord Hu has really pointed out a great talent for me. Lord Hu? Who? Suyu was deep in thought. Master Shui, from now on, you are the special grade appraiser of the Star Tower branch in the Jianxian Ocean area, and also the second deputy cabinet master. Your position is above all the other appraisers, and in the whole branch, only I can order you around. In order to keep Suyu, Mu Songhai rewarded him generously. In the blink of an eye, Suyu had jumped from an outsider to a deputy cabinet master, and even had the title of a special grade appraiser. Did he only listen to the cabinet master? That was exactly what Suyu wanted, as it would save him a lot of trouble. Congratulations, Deputy Cabinet Master Shui. Yen Changhong said sourly. She had made countless contributions to obtain her current position. In the end, Suyu had leaped to her position because of his talent. How could she feel balanced? Suyu muttered to himself for a moment and said, Cabinet Master, Deputy Cabinet Master Yen, regarding my identity as a Deputy Cabinet Master and a special grade appraiser, I hope that both of you will keep it a secret for the time being. A tall tree attracts the wind, and I am lacking in abilities. It is not good for me to attract too much attention. Mu Songhai found Suyu pleasing no matter how he looked at him, and agreed immediately. You are thoughtful, but I am confused. All right, announce to the public that you are only the new appraiser of the Star Tower, and keep your identity as a Deputy Cabinet Master and a special grade appraiser a secret for the time being. Yen Changhong also said, Don't worry, Deputy Cabinet Master Shui, I will keep it a secret too. She found that Suyu was humble and low-key, and he knew when to advance and when to retreat. Especially when the artifact spirit and the others provoked him just now, Suyu had endured it first, and it seemed that he was not a person who liked to fight for fame and fortune. Thinking of that, her heart relaxed a lot, and her gaze towards Suyu became gentler. Thank you very much, Suyu said. Mu Songhai said, Master Shui, you are now the Deputy Cabinet Master of the Star Tower, and you can use the resources of the Star Tower. Suyu's eyes brightened and he said, I do have something to investigate. Why don't you tell me about it? Mu Songhai said, I know a lot about the Jianxian Sea area, and maybe I can help Master Shui. Suyu said, in the ancestral worship ceremony of the Twin Stars Island, there is a kind of spiritual liquid that is watered with the divine path. It is the spinal fluid of some kind of giant beast. I am about to break through, and I need this spinal fluid. I wonder what kind of giant beast this spinal fluid is from. Hearing that, Yen Changhong covered her mouth and laughed. Deputy Cabinet Master Shui, you have asked the right person. Coincidentally, half a year ago, Shui Lei of the Shui family exchanged a bag of this spinal fluid for 10 starlight grass. The cabinet master has studied it personally and has found the source of the spinal fluid. Su Yu was delighted and asked, "Cabinet master, what kind of giant beast does the spinal fluid come from?" Mu Songhai was very willing to answer and said, "It should be the long-extinct Dragon Clan." Dragon Clan? Su Yu was surprised. Not long ago, he had been in contact with the World Annihilation Dragon and the World Creator Dragon. Divine dragons are born to control the Great Path, and their spinal fluid has the effect of solidifying the Divine Path, so it is not surprising, Mu Songhai said. Su Yu understood. Indeed, the possibility of it being from the Dragon Clan was very high. Cabinet Master, has the Star Tower ever collected the Dragon Marrow? Thinking of the benefits of the Dragon Marrow to the Divine Path, Su Yu was overjoyed. If he could fully comprehend the last 999 Divine Paths, he would completely step into the Divine Path. However, the Star Tower Master shook his head. Unfortunately, the Dragon Clan has been extinct for too long. Our branch doesn't have it. Even the headquarters rarely receives the Dragon Marrow. Even if there is, it will be bought immediately. Su Yu couldn't help but feel disappointed. However, if you want to find the Dragon Marrow, there is still a chance. Mu Songhai's tone changed. Su Yu's spirit was slightly lifted. Oh? Where is it? The 10,000 Dragons Cave. Mu Songhai's eyes flashed. The Dragon Marrow that has appeared in the Jianxian Ocean in recent years is most likely from the 10,000 Dragons Cave. Here again? Su Yu remembered that the Murong family and the Shui family joined forces for the 10,000 Dragons Cave. The 10,000 Dragon Cave is rumored to be a ruin left behind by an incomparably powerful dragon in the past when he was besieged by many divine dragons and fought with them. There are many remains of the dragon race inside, and the Dragon Marrow came from these remains. The extremely powerful Dragon Clan was besieged by many divine dragons? Su Yu was surprised. Why did this story sound so familiar? Back then, the epic-making dragon stole the Dragon Abyss treasure scroll and was hunted down by many divine dragons of the dragon world. Could that legend be about the epic-making dragon being hunted down? A strange look appeared in Su Yu's eyes. Master Shui, I remember that the Shui family also has a quota to enter the 10,000 Dragons Cave. You can try this trip. And Master Shui. Mu Songhai noticed Su Yu's strange look. Su Yu hurriedly said seriously, I was just surprised by the ancient legend. After a short pause, Su Yu said, Can I ask the Tower Master for a leave of absence for a while? I would like to enter the 10,000 Dragons Cave to take a look. Mu Songhai laughed. Of course. I will also arrange for 2 strong men to follow you from now on and protect your safety. Su Yu secretly frowned. In name, they were bodyguards. In reality, they were worried that Su Yu would not keep his promise and return to the Star Tower. At that moment, a gray figure appeared beside Mu Songhai like a ghost and whispered to him. Mu Songhai was surprised and looked at Su Yu strangely. Su Yu said, Tower Master, what's the matter? Mu Songhai laughed playfully. Haha, it's your fiancée. She came all the way here to see you. Fiancé? Murong Qingqing's figure appeared in Su Yu's mind, and he could not help but frown. This practical woman who wanted to climb the social ladder? Master Shui, it's better to meet her. It seems that the 2 of you are not in a good situation, Mu Songhai said. Su Yu sighed. After all, there was a marriage agreement in name. He cupped his fists and said, I'll take my leave first. Watching Su Yu leave, Mu Songhai withdrew his smile and said to the gray figure solemnly, The 10,000 Dragons Cave is full of dangers. Coupled with the participation of various island forces, the danger level has increased. Arrange for a few people to infiltrate and protect Shui Yu secretly. If anything happens to him, you can bring your head to me. Chapter 1609. In the back hall of the Star Pavilion, Elder Qinyun and Murong Qingqing were restless. Normally, they were not qualified to be guests in the Star Pavilion. However, after clarifying Shui Yu's identity as his fiancée, the attitude of the maids changed drastically. They were extremely passionate, a far cry from their previous coldness. Miss Murong is truly blessed to be able to marry Grandmaster Shui. This is a wonderful thing that many women can only dream of, said a pretty maid enviously as she poured tea for Murong Qingqing. The maid who was massaging Murong Qingqing's shoulders said with jealousy, Miss Murong is so beautiful, ranked number 1 in the Sword Pavilion Ocean. Master Shui is so knowledgeable and talented. You two are really a match made in heaven. I have to believe that there is a will of heaven in this world. The flattery fell into Murong Qingqing's ears, but every word felt like needles stabbing her. If the marriage contract had not been torn apart, Murong Qingqing would have been happy to hear such flattery to satisfy her vanity. But now, the more flattery, the deeper the sarcasm. Tick! The sound of light footsteps came from the back hall. Su Yu walked in front of the two and said, Miss Murong, Elder Qingyun, how have you been? What are you two, sizing them up? Su Yu was shocked to find that their clothes were dim and their bodies were covered in dust. Murong Qingqing, who used to be glamorous, looked a lot more haggard. Her former arrogance and confidence were nowhere to be seen. Master Shui. Both Elder Qingyun and Murong Qingqing stood up to pay their respects. Compared to the last time on Murong Island, it was a huge change. You don't have to be so courteous. You must have something important to tell me, Su Yu said. Murong Qingqing suddenly realized that Su Yu's modesty, politeness, and gentleness were really rare. Why didn't she feel this way before? Regret flooded her heart. She bit her lips and bitterly bowed. Young Master Shui, it was all Qingqing's fault in the past. Young Master Shui, please let bygones be bygones and forgive me. Su Yu did not have a good impression of her, but he had seen too many realistic women. There were many more realistic women than Murong Qingqing, so he did not dislike her too much. Miss Murong, what are you doing? You are my fiancée, so there is no need for you to be so formal. If there is anything you need my help with, just let me know, Su Yu said. As long as he stayed in the Shui family, he would admit Shui Yu's identity and his engagement. Murong Qingqing and Master Blue Cloud exchanged a glance, both startled. Could it be that Shui Yuntian still hadn't told him about the broken engagement? A glimmer of hope appeared in their eyes, but it was extinguished soon after. Shui Yu would find out sooner or later, so it was better to be honest. Murong Qingqing said shamefully, Young Master Shui, this concubine is muddle-headed. I've already broken off the engagement. These words were beyond Su Yu's expectations. Destroy the engagement? Thinking about it, Su Yu guessed most of it. It was probably because the Shui family had been on the Murong Island for a few days and had declined, so Murong Qingqing had suggested to cancel the engagement. As he looked at her, Su Yu's state of mind did not fluctuate much. Whether the engagement was annulled or not, it did not affect him. In any case, he had never intended to fulfill this engagement. On the contrary, Murong Qingqing and Master Blue Cloud's faces were ashen and extremely terrified. They were very afraid that Su Yu would punish them out of anger. If that happened, it would be even more impossible to repair the relationship between the two families. However, unexpectedly, Su Yu's face was calm. He said, Oh, I see. The calmer he was, the more terrified the two were. Murong Qingqing knelt down with a thud and sobbed, Young Master Shui, it was because I was greedy and vain that I broke off the engagement. It had nothing to do with Grandpa. If you want to blame someone, blame me. I'm willing to do whatever you want with me, even if I have to be your slave. I only ask that you let Grandpa return to the Murong family and give him a place to settle down. Master Blue Cloud felt pity for his granddaughter. He knelt down and said, Young Master Shui, it was all my fault. It had nothing to do with Qingqing. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Seeing that the two were sincerely repentant, Su Yu paused for a moment. He waved his palm and a mass of mortal fairies' strength appeared, helping them up. Tell me the cause and effect first, Su Yu said. Hearing that there was hope, Master Blue Cloud immediately narrated the scene with great emotion. When he was done, he stood aside in shame. It turned out that he hoped that the Shui family and the Murong family could reconcile. Su Yu pondered. The forces in the Jianxian Ocean were complicated. One more ally was better than one more powerful enemy. Besides, he would not stay in the Shui family forever. It was necessary to repair the relationship between the two families. I can forgive you for breaking off the engagement in public. He stared at Murong Qingqing and turned to look at Master Blue Cloud. However, the harm that the Murong family has done to the Shui family needs to be made up for with your actions. You should be begging the Shui family, not me. Dong. Master Blue Cloud knelt down and kowtowed, sincerely grateful. Thank you, young Master Shui, for your magnanimity. Now that the Shui family had obtained Shui Yu's forgiveness, they were halfway to success. If Shui Yu did not forgive them, even if the rest of the Shui family forgave them, it would be useless. Su Yu said, I'm going back to the Twin Star Island. You can come with me. With his help, Shui Yuntian would seriously consider restoring the relationship between the two families. Master Blue Cloud understood Su Yu's intention. He was grateful and ashamed. I've lived for so long in vain, but I failed to recognize people. I'm willing to work like a slave to repay the disrespect I've shown young Master Shui. Su Yu said, You're too kind. Get ready. After bidding farewell to the master of the Starry Pavilion, Su Yu stepped onto the Starry Pavilion's top-grade flying ship. The Cloudy Sky ship was the best flying ship in the Jianxian Ocean. It could travel hundreds of millions of miles in a breath, almost as fast as the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole. 2 days later, they sailed into a barren area of the ocean. There were only small islands nearby. Small, insignificant forces were thriving on it. What a strong smell of blood! Master Blue Cloud suddenly frowned. His strength was as high as a level 2 Cavern World Master, and his 5 senses surpassed Su Yu's. Su Yu opened his eyes and activated his vision. He could vaguely see traces of blood light where the sky and the sea met. Hide first. Su Yu stepped on a switch somewhere on the flying ship. The Cloudy Sky ship automatically produced a faint layer of light, blending into the surrounding environment. It was impossible to identify it when it was stationary. Su Yu stared into the distance. The blood light was getting closer and closer. When it got closer, Su Yu's face changed. It was a corpse that had been gnawed into a pulp. The parts of the corpse that contained essence, energy, and spirit had been eaten, just like the rotten corpse in the Starry Pavilion that was determined to be the work of the 9 divine bodies. However, the number of corpses in front of him was horrifying. About tens of thousands of corpses had drifted here from the islands in front of them along with the current. These were the ones that had fallen into the sea. As for the ones on the islands, there were countless who had been killed by the 9 divine bodies. Master Blue Cloud frowned deeply. What kind of ferocious spirit is this? Don't speak, Su Yu said with a stern look. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, a fierce gust of wind blew near the Cloudy Sky ship. Surrounded by the shadows of 9 huge ferocious beasts, a skinny human creature with a mouth full of blood appeared 3,000 feet away from the Cloudy Sky ship in an instant. He looked around with cold eyes and snorted coldly. Ran away? I clearly sensed that a good food was nearby. Among the 9 shadows of the beasts, one had a pair of wings. As soon as it spread its huge wings, it instantly flew thousands of miles away and landed on the island in the distance. The remaining ferocious and peerless aura made Murong Qingqing's beautiful face turn pale, and her cherry lips opened wide. If Su Yu hadn't covered her mouth, she would have screamed out loud. Even Master Blue Cloud was not much better. His whole body trembled involuntarily, and his face turned pale. He said, "What is that?" Silence was the only answer. Master Blue Cloud looked up and saw Su Yu's face full of surprise and murderous intent. The 9 shadows of the beasts were indeed the 9 divine bodies that Mu Songhai had mentioned. However, Su Yu had never expected that he would know the 9 divine bodies. Gu Taishu. He was not dead. Back then, his cultivation was destroyed by Zhan Wushuang, and he was involved in the War of the Demons. Not only did he not die, but he also achieved the 9 divine bodies. According to Mu Tsanghai, the 9 divine bodies could rival the most ferocious spirit in the world, the existence of the Tao Tai. Let's go. Su Yu's face was calm. Gu Taishu's appearance had confirmed his guess. Apart from him, there were other creatures that had escaped from the Tao Tai's cage. Gu Taishu, you are not fated to die yet. Do you need me to kill you again? Su Yu said coldly. His appearance made Su Yu feel even more urgent. If he had been at his peak, he would have been able to kill Gu Taishu. But now, unless he became a deity and unsealed the time, space, soul, life, and death rules, as well as the storage devices, he would not be a match for Gu Taishu. I have to go to the cave of 10,000 dragons, Su Yu said to himself. Double Star Island. After half a year of emptiness, the Shui family's mansion had become a residence for refugees. During this period, it had been destroyed and was in a state of desolation. Fortunately, Li Qianquan had ordered the whole family to help the Shui family repair the mansion in advance. When Shui Yuntian and the others returned, the Shui family's mansion had almost been restored, and the lost property had been compensated. When Su Yu returned, the mansion had not only been completely restored, but it had also been expanded on its original foundation. It was said that a lot of the Li family's territory had been occupied. His return naturally caused a sensation on the whole island. A peerless prodigy had appeared on Twin Star Island. Not only was he extremely talented in martial arts, but he was also talented in heretic arts. He had caught the eye of a behemoth like the Star Pavilion and was taken in as an appraiser of the Star Pavilion. Such a person had never been born in the history of the Double Star Island. One could imagine how popular Shui Yu was now. Shui Yuntian even led the whole family to the port to welcome him personally. The two of them looked at each other from afar. Shui Yuntian no longer had any ill feelings. He said, "Welcome back." Su Yu nodded and returned to the Shui family's mansion under the gazes of countless living creatures. In the sky above the Li family's mansion, many members of the Li family were watching the grand welcoming scene. Li Qianquan had a complicated expression, his expression full of worry. In the few months since his return, the Li family had been pressured into sacrificing a large number of treasures to help the Shui family repair their mansion and ceded many territories. But Li Qianquan knew that this was just the beginning. With Shui Yu's current status and identity, the Double Star Island was no longer the same as before, where two forces fought for supremacy. The Shui family's rise was unstoppable, and the Li family was obviously a stumbling block. It was foreseeable that in the near future, the Li family would either submit to the Shui family or be expelled from the Double Star Island by the Shui family. There was no other choice. Li Qianquan stared at Shui Yu's back for a long time before clenching his fists. "Shui Yu, don't blame me. Your existence is a form of destruction to the Li family." In the past few months, he had been deep in thought. The Shui family's rise was all thanks to Shui Yu. If Shui Yu died, could the Shui family continue to rise? If the Li family wanted to survive, Shui Yu had to die. Chapter 1610. Inside the Shui Manor, 6 elders and a handful of core family members were gathered together. Shui Yuntian glanced at Elder Qinyun and Murong Qinqing, frowning. Why did they come back with you?" Without waiting for Su Yu to speak, Murong Qinqing knelt down and begged pitifully, "Uncle Shui, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me for being young and ignorant." Shui Yuntian said coldly, "Now that things have come to this, you still want to renew your engagement with Yuer? I'm sorry, but I cannot agree." "No, Uncle, you misunderstood. I came here today only to ask for Uncle's forgiveness. I am too ashamed to ask for Brother Shui Yu's help." Even though Murong Qinqing was mentally prepared, she still felt dejected after hearing such an answer. Shui Yuntian said, then you should be begging you, not me. He looked at Suyu, implying that he was looking at Suyu. Suyu smiled lightly. Who doesn't make mistakes? I have accepted Miss Murong's apology. Get up. Since he was understanding, Shui Yuntian had no reason to continue blaming her. You is kind-hearted. Miss Murong, please take care of yourself. He then looked at Elder Qingyun. Why are you kneeling in front of the Shui Manor? The Shui Manor cannot afford to have such a big shot like you kneel. In those 3 days, the one who made the Shui family look the worst was Elder Qingyun. He secretly urged the Murong clan's supreme elder to make things difficult for the Shui family. During the last negotiation, it could be said that he lost all of his face and was too ashamed to face anyone. Now that he had personally come to apologize, how could Shui Yuntian swallow this insult? Elder Qingyun was already mentally prepared. He kowtowed again. I know I have hurt the Shui family, but I am not here today to ask for forgiveness. Then what are you here for? Shui Yuntian said coldly, wanting nothing more than to chase him away. Elder Qingyun took a deep breath and made a decision. I am willing to be a slave of the Shui family for 100 years. Eh? Suyu was surprised. He had not expected Elder Qingyun to be so bold. The clansmen were also surprised. A dignified second heaven cavern world venerable, whose strength was comparable to the lonely mountain venerable elder, was willing to be his slave for 100 years? Murong Qingqing's jade-like body trembled, and her eyes became watery. She wanted to stop him, but her rationality told her that this might be the only way for her grandfather to earn the Shui family's forgiveness. Shui Yuntian, whose face was filled with rage, revealed shock in his eyes. Being a slave for 100 years was easier said than done. Without thinking about it, it was impossible to make such a decision. The resentment in his heart weakened by more than half, but he still couldn't back down. He said, Elder Qingyun, you can go back. I've already said that the Shui and Murong families are no longer related. Since I've already said it, there's no reason to change it. Back then, he had already said it, so how could he take it back? Suyu tried to smooth things over, staring at Elder Qingyun with displeasure. You heard everything? Sending a clan elder like you isn't enough to make our 2 clans reconcile. No matter what, you should at least invite your Murong clan leader to come in person to show your sincerity, right? How could Elder Qingyun not understand that Suyu was giving Shui Yuntian a way out of this embarrassing situation? In his heart, he was wild with joy and even more grateful to Suyu. He said, Shui family leader, it was my lack of consideration. I'll send a message to the family right now and ask the family leader to come in person with the important members of the family. Without giving Shui Yuntian a chance to stop him, he shattered the communication jade. Stop! Shui Yuntian pretended to stop him, but it was too late. He said angrily, Elder Qingyun, how do you expect me to explain this to the Shui family? And you, how could you come up with such an idea? It seemed like he was reprimanding them, but everyone could hear that he didn't mean it. When the people of the family learned that the Murong clan leader had personally come to repair their relationship, they felt honored. Their previous resentment lessened greatly, and they didn't object too much. In any case, the Shui family would soar in the future, and the Murong family could bask in their glory if they wanted to. With this thought in mind, the restoration of their relationship was just around the corner. After the family meeting ended, Elder Qingyun and Murong Qingqing settled down in the family. Shui Yuntian asked Suyu to stay behind and said, You've really put me in a difficult position. Suyu voiced his thoughts. Shui Yuntian was silent for a moment, then sighed. Sigh, how could I not know? The Shui family has suffered great losses, and it's time for us to have allies. Otherwise, I won't forgive Elder Qingyun even if he becomes a slave for 1,000 years. Suyu smiled. The relationship between the 2 families had been restored, and with the support of the Starry Pavilion in the future, even if Suyu left the Shui family, as long as he was still alive, he would be safe. Murong Qingqing, what do you plan to do? It seems like she doesn't plan to leave the Shui family for the time being. It's not a good thing for her to stay here for a long time, Shui Yuntian asked Su Yu. As Su Yu's ex-fiancée, if she stayed in the Shui family and didn't leave, rumors would spread sooner or later. Su Yu said, "It doesn't matter. Let her be." After a pause, Su Yu asked, "What's going on with the Cave of 10,000 Dragons?" Shui Yuntian wasn't surprised and said, "You want to join this expedition? That's fine, you're the most suitable person for it." He took out 2 objects. One was an invitation letter with the words, 10,000 dragons, written on it. The other was the Sinan he had brought back from the Murong family. The Cave of 10,000 Dragons is the largest ancient relic in the Jianxian territorial waters, Shui Yuntian said. Its source can no longer be traced. Since its discovery, it has been under the control of the Jianxian territorial waters. It opens once every 5 years, and every island has 10 slots. The invitation letter was issued by the Jianxian territorial waters. Su Yu said, "Is the Jianxian territorial waters so kind as to allow the island influences to enter instead of searching for it themselves?" Shui Yuntian shook his head and laughed coldly. "How could they be so kind? The Cave of 10,000 Dragons is too vast, and even if the Jianxian territorial waters were given 100 million years, it would still be impossible for the Jianxian territorial waters to stay here for 100 million years. Therefore, the Jianxian territorial waters issues 10 invitations to the major influences every year, allowing them to enter and search for natural resources. 80% of the resources found must be handed over to the Jianxian territorial waters, and the remaining 20% is distributed among the island influences." Su Yu couldn't help but laugh. 80%? The Jianxian territorial waters really doesn't care about the island influences. Shui Yuntian sighed. So what? If the island influences had the power to resist the Jianxian territorial waters, we wouldn't be forced to hand over the starlight grass every year. When you enter the Cave of 10,000 Dragons this time, if you can, please take care of the people who are going with you, Shui Yuntian said. Su Yu said, "Me? Aren't you going?" "I want to go, but it won't be that easy," Shui Yuntian said. "In order to prevent those who are too strong from hiding their resources, the Jianxian territorial waters has clear requirements for the island influences. Those who are invited must not be stronger than level 3 Cavern World Senior." Touching his chin, Su Yu said, "What about the Jianxian territorial waters? Them? Haha, every year the master of the Jianxian territorial waters, Jian Ruxiong, enters it personally. What do you think?" Shui Yuntian said disdainfully. Su Yu smacked his lips. "How fair. The island influences below only allowed those who were not strong enough to participate. But even the master of the Jianxian territorial waters, an overlord-level existence, was involved. The island influences could not hope to fight for some precious items. No matter what, I will do my best to help them," Su Yu said. Shui Yuntian cupped his fists in thanks and said, "Take this, it might be useful." He handed the Sinan he had brought back from the Murong family to Su Yu and said, "When Murong Feng and I were still ordinary people, we entered the Cave of 10,000 Dragons and found this in a secret space. Because it looked ordinary, the Jianxian territorial waters did not take it away. But that space was extremely secretive, and it was used to hide this thing. It must be very important, but the two of us have been studying it for many years and have not been able to discover its secrets," Shui Yuntian said. "Now that you are going to the Cave of 10,000 Dragons, it will be better if this thing can be useful." There was one more thing he did not say. The reason he gave it to Su Yu was because of Su Yu's ability to appraise treasures. Maybe this thing would be more useful in his hands. Su Yu sized it up and said, "This thing should be used to point the way. Since it was found in the Cave of 10,000 Dragons, it might only be useful in the Cave of 10,000 Dragons." Shui Yuntian said, "Anyway, I will leave this thing to you. There were still 2 months before the opening of the Cave of 10,000 Dragons. After Su Yu returned, he chose to go into seclusion. In addition to studying the divine path, Su Yu also studied the legacy of the demonic sword boundless swordsmanship. After almost a year of training, Su Yu had a new understanding of the sword will. He pulled out the beauty under the moon. The sword energy circled around him and formed an arc around him, like a demonic moon in the night. Then, he slammed his left palm on the ground, and the long sword in his hand stabbed repeatedly. The stabbing caused bursts of sparks to burn in the air like falling meteors. It was very mesmerizing. Su Yu's eyes shone with understanding. Demonic moon revolving style, dark night meteor thrust. If the demonic moon revolving style was just the tip of the iceberg, then the dark night meteor thrust was the beginner level. However, it was only a slight understanding, and he needed time to consolidate it. Closing his eyes, Su Yu held the long sword in his hand and entered a deeper level of understanding. Time flew by and a month had passed. Murong Qingqing stayed in the Shui family for a whole month. As expected, there were many rumors about the Twin Star Island. Some said that Shui Yu had reconsidered marrying Murong Qingqing and stayed for a month to test her. Some said that the Murong family had sent her to serve Shui Yu, and that she was Shui Yu's plaything. When Murong Qingqing heard all these, she only pursed her lips into a smile and did not deny it. Such an attitude made people even more suspicious. On this day, Murong Qingqing was leisurely planting flowers in Su Yu's yard, humming a lively tune. Swoosh! All of a sudden, a sharp arrow pierced through the sky and came straight at her. Murong Qingqing's expression changed abruptly, and she yelled, "Who is it?" At the same time, she pulled out her sword to block it. However, the sharp arrow contained the divine power of a level 3 cavern world venerable. Not only did she fail to block it, but her arm was scratched by the sharp arrow. The sharp arrow pierced into the secret room where Su Yu was. "Young Master Shui, be careful!" Murong Qingqing yelled anxiously. Ding! With a crisp sound of metal colliding, a starlight flashed and disappeared. Then, the door of the secret room opened and Su Yu walked out. He held the beauty under the moon in one hand, and his whole body flickered with residual starlight, making him look dreamy and illusory. The other hand held a black iron arrow. A fine silk cloth was tied to the arrow. When it was unfolded, there was a line of beautiful small words on it. "Do not enter the cave of 10,000 dragons, or you will bear the consequences." Murong Qingqing came over to have a look and said angrily, "Humph! Who is so bold as to threaten you not to enter the cave of 10,000 dragons?" She was very surprised. With Su Yu's current status, who dared to be so unscrupulous? Su Yu looked thoughtful, shook his head, and sighed softly. "It's not a threat, but a reminder that someone in the cave of 10,000 dragons wants to harm me." "Who?" Murong Qingqing was curious. Chapter 16:11. Do you believe it? Murong Qingqing glanced at the elegant handwriting and guessed that it was written by a woman. She frowned slightly. It was widely rumored in the Twin Star Island that she was Shui Yu's woman. If a rival in love popped up, it would have a negative impact on her. "Whether you believe it or not, we should indeed make some preparations," Su Yu said expressionlessly. That meant he believed it. Who was that woman? Murong Qingqing asked. A month later, the Shui family picked out 10 outstanding people. Among them, 5 were the younger generation and 5 were the middle-aged generation. Among the younger generation were Shui Xian and Shui Lin, whom Su Yu had once bestowed with alien divine technique. They were inconspicuous among the many people, but because of Su Yu, they were specially picked out by Shui Yuntian. The 10 people stood by Su Yu's side respectfully, listening to his instructions. Su Yu looked at Shui Yuntian, who gave them a space ring shaped like a leaf, and said, "You can find what you want in it." Nodding, Su Yu led the people to the Sword Pavilion. The entrance to the relic was occupied by the Sword Pavilion. If they wanted to enter, they had to go through the Sword Pavilion first. The Sword Pavilion also occupied an island. Whether in terms of geographical location, abundant resources, or the density of divine energy, it was ranked first in the sea. The island it was on was also known as the First Central Island. The distance between the major islands to the first central island was not far, and could be reached in half a month. Moreover, Suyu had the Cloud Sky ship, which could travel as if he was teleporting. They arrived at their destination in a short 7 days. The central island was huge, with ridges on the sea surface. It looked like a real continent. From afar, a stone sword stood majestically in the center of the continent, piercing through the clouds. Inside the stone sword, there was a familiar aura. Starlight grass. Suyu was surprised. Morong Qingqing, who was accompanying them, nodded and said, "The stone sword was excavated by the master of the Sword Pavilion in the cave of 10,000 dragons. It is tens of thousands of feet tall, and contains mysterious sword technique. But every year, it needs to be smeared with the juice of the starlight grass. Otherwise, the sword techniques in the stone sword cannot be activated. It is because of this stone sword that the Sword Pavilion has developed so quickly. Even an ordinary disciple of the Sword Pavilion can be considered an outstanding talent among the younger generation in our island." Her tone was full of respect. What would a stone sword excavated in the cave of 10,000 dragons be? Suyu stared at the stone sword for a long time. "Let's get on the island. If we stay here for too long, we might be discovered by the Sword Pavilion's patrolling warriors." Murong Qingqing was very careful. The two words Sword Pavilion were like a curse that scared her. A day later, they finally arrived at Central Island and arrived at the stone sword according to the map. This was also the entrance to the relic. Looking at the stone sword up close, Suyu felt a sense of familiarity. Other than the starlight grass, there was also a sense of familiarity. "It's the aura of a dragon," he murmured softly. In the past, he had cultivated the mystical abilities of the dragon tribe and had also comprehended the Dragon Abyss treasure scroll. Therefore, he was far more sensitive to the aura of the dragon tribe than others. Dong dong, out of the blue, Suyu's words seemed to have triggered a response from the stone sword. Traces of a heartbeat burst forth from within, joyful and excited. Suyu was stunned. There was an artifact spirit in the stone sword? After a brief moment of shock, Suyu immediately averted his gaze, and the stone sword's heartbeat gradually subsided. After all, this was Jian Xian's territory. Before he recovered his strength, he did not want to cause any trouble. But what he didn't know was that trouble had already come. In the depths of Jian Xian Palace, a short-haired middle-aged man in a green robe suddenly opened his cold eyes. Two swords shot out from his eyes, igniting the surrounding divine energy. "The artifact spirit of the stone sword has appeared? Who has the ability to trigger a response from the artifact spirit?" The middle-aged man was shocked. He transformed into a sword light and rushed out of the secret chamber, arriving above the stone sword. His sharp eyes were filled with excitement. The stone sword was excavated from the deepest part of the cave of 10,000 dragons. A celestial venerable dragon at the level of an emperor was nailed to death by the sword. If I can awaken the artifact spirit and refine it, who among the overlords would be a match for me? Even the high and mighty purple dream divine warrior would have the power to kill me. His eyes were filled with insanity. After listening for a while, there was no heartbeat from the artifact spirit. He immediately scanned the area below and muttered to himself, "The artifact spirit can only sense within 1,000 feet." His sharp eyes quickly swept across, but he could not sense who was most likely to sense it. "Men!" he shouted. Swish, 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 the sound of armor clashing could be heard from the horizon. Tens of thousands of silver-armored people came in front of him and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Sword Pavilion Master. Arrest everyone within 1,000 feet of the stone sword," Jian Ruxiong shouted. The silver-armored leader looked at the densely packed crowd below and said, Most of them are from the island forces below. If we arrest them all, would it be, The more island forces they are, the more we have to arrest them. Do not let any of them go. Jian Ruxiong said. If they were from the Sword Pavilion, it was unlikely that they would trigger a response from the artifact spirit. Every year, the people of the Sword Pavilion would swear their loyalty to the Sword Pavilion in front of the stone sword. If they could sense it, they would have sensed it long ago. Yes, the leader said. Jian Ruxiong paused. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he added, if they resist, break their limbs and cripple their cultivation. Do you understand? Yes. The leader released a murderous aura and led 10,000 armored soldiers to descend from the sky. With the stone sword as the center, they surrounded all living beings within 1,000 miles. All of you surrender. If you dare to resist, kill without mercy, the armored leader shouted. They were all candidates sent by the various clans to participate in the ruins exploration. Why would they be wary of being arrested? Subconsciously, a few of them wanted to break out. In the end, they were quickly suppressed. Their limbs were cruelly chopped off, and their cultivation was crippled. The shrill screams awakened the people who were surrounded. If anyone resists, you will suffer the same fate. The armored leader glanced at them coldly, as if he was looking at a group of caged animals. With such a bloody scene, they all obediently surrendered and were all arrested by the silver-armored soldiers. After that, the leader said to the others, "There is nothing else for you to do. Do what you were supposed to do." Jian Ruxiong's cold light flashed. He disappeared into the stone sword and went back to interrogate the 1,000 people. Mr. Shui, what happened? Everyone within 1,000 feet of the stone sword was arrested. This has never happened before. Murong Qingqing's small face was pale. Su Yu shook his head and his face was filled with coldness. After he had triggered a response from the artifact spirit, he knew something was wrong and led his people away from the stone sword. Almost as soon as he left, the silver-armored soldiers descended from the sky. They were almost caught as well. Miss Murong, has the Sword Pavilion always treated the island forces like this? Su Yu asked. Murong Qingqing looked around and said angrily, "Of course. I can tell from the starlight grass that even if you owe me one, even if you have contributed to the Sword Pavilion, you will be expelled without mercy." The Shui family had just experienced this cruelty. They had moved their entire family, lost their homes, and died. Perhaps, in the eyes of the Sword Pavilion, a force like the Shui family was less than a fly and could be replaced at any time. Power is king. The more chaotic the area, the more it is like this, Su Yu said. Slowly, the people from the various island forces arrived one after another. Around the stone sword, a large number of family members gathered again. The Li family of the Twin Star Island, the Murong family of the Murong Island, and the Feather God clan of the Star Island. Tuobaluan was talking to two well-dressed young men of the same generation. Tuobaluan, I heard you have practiced the Ice Feather Divine Incantation? Not bad, your strength has improved a lot. The one who spoke was a girl with big eyes and 3 strange flowers on her head. Tuobaluan snorted coldly, Bai Hua Fairy, if you want to try, I don't mind fighting with you right now. Bai Hua Fairy. Su Yu had heard of this girl before. She was the daughter of the 100 Flower clan, ranked 3rd among the island forces. Her cultivation had reached the peak of level 3, only 1 step away from the gate of level 2. You are still as arrogant as ever. Always with a cold face, you are not likable, Bai Hua Fairy said with a smile. Tuobaluan said unhappily, I said, if you want to fight, you can try now. Bai Hua Fairy squinted her eyes and smiled. Sure, don't think you are the only one who has improved. Seeing that the two of them were about to kill each other on the spot, the young man who had been smiling gently all this while said, little sister 100 Flowers, brother Tuoba, now is not the time to waste your divine power. We are not enemies. The real enemy is over there. He glanced at the direction of the Sword Pavilion. The two of them understood and withdrew their divine power, stared at each other, but did not fight. The biggest enemy of the Cave of 10,000 Dragons was not the competition between the island forces, but the Sword Pavilion. The Sword Pavilion had mobilized its entire army, from the disciples of the mortal fairies to the masters of the Sword Pavilion to the masters of the Sword Pavilion. They were all powerful and their cultivation was not restricted. Plus, the island forces were their subordinates, so they were unscrupulous in their actions. In the past, the island forces that entered the ruins would lose more than 30% of their members. Some of them died in the dangers of the ruins, but most of them died under the hands of the people of the Sword Pavilion. In order to get more resources, the people of the Sword Pavilion would choose to attack the island forces. Of course, a small number of them died in the fights between the island forces. The two of them stopped arguing. Tuobaluan snorted coldly and turned his head away. Unfortunately, as he turned his head, he saw the Shui family in the corner of the crowd. What was even more unfortunate was that Shuiyu, who was surrounded by a myriad of stars, was so conspicuous that he could not be any more conspicuous. "It's him." Tuobaluan had nowhere to vent his anger, so when he saw Suyu, he immediately found a target to vent his anger on. He parted the crowd and walked quickly up to Suyu. "Shui, how dare you come?" Suyu heard him, looked up and said calmly, "Is the Cave of 10,000 Dragons managed by the Feather God clan?" How could Tuobaluan dare to respond to such harsh words? He bellowed angrily, "Stop talking nonsense. Since the Feather God clan has no right to decide, why did you threaten me not to enter? Is it because the Feather God clan has grown up and wants to replace the Sword Pavilion and command the island forces?" His questions were getting more and more vicious. The elders of the Feather God clan who accompanied him hurriedly gave him a look. This was the territory of the Sword Pavilion. If the Sword Pavilion heard such rebellious words, as overbearing as they were, who knew what they would do? Tuobaluan said coldly, "You have a sharp tongue. I hope you can still talk and laugh in front of me after entering the Cave of 10,000 Dragons." Chapter 16:12. You. Tuobaluan's eyes were cold, flickering dangerously. "I think, in order for you to live longer in the Cave of 10,000 Dragons, you need to understand the difference in status before you enter." Boom! A strong divine power gathered in his palm, reflecting his ferocious face. "Tuobaluan, if you want to fight, ask our Shui family first." Another level 3 Cavern World Master's aura rushed over. It was an elder of the Shui family, Shui Changji. As a candidate for the next family master, he was very powerful. The elders of the Feather God clan naturally did not want to show weakness and rushed over. The experts of both sides quickly confronted each other, as if they would start a fight at any moment. This scene was beyond Tuobaluan's expectations. Shuiyu was so popular? He did not want to see a fight between the two clans. Brother Tuoba, why are you so angry? We are both island forces, we should help each other." It was the gentle young man again, speaking to ease the tension of both sides. Tuobaluan snorted, "Lu Tianji, you meddle in other people's business." He retracted his divine power and complained unhappily. Lu Tianji only chuckled, not minding his bad attitude. "You are the number 1 family on the island, the pride of the Lu family, Lu Tianji?" Shui Changji said in surprise. Lu Tianji clicked on it. Su Yu's eyes flashed. Lu Tianji's reputation was even above Bai Hua Fairy and Tuobaluan. This person was gifted, born to be proficient in divination, probing the secrets of heaven, and capturing fate. Using this talent, he turned misfortunes into blessings, and his cultivation progressed at a tremendous pace. It was said that he reached level 3 Cavern World Master 5 years ago. Now that 5 years had passed, he was still a level 3 Cavern World Master, but no one believed that his strength had stagnated. It was more likely that he was suppressing his cultivation, waiting for this Cave of 10,000 Dragons. Both sides stopped fighting, but Tuobaluan was a bit angry. He came aggressively, but he did not expect that he could not vent his anger, and instead had nowhere to vent it. Suddenly, he noticed that Murong Qingqing was actually in the Shui clan's group as well, and a trace of a smile couldn't help but appear on the corners of his mouth, as he said in a loud voice, "Qingqing, you've come as well." He rudely separated the Shui family members and walked in front of Murong Qingqing. He revealed a handsome smile and intentionally sighed loudly. "Qingqing, you were forced by your family to become Shui Yu's fiancé. You've suffered a lot." Many people could not help but frown inwardly when they heard this. The number one beauty of the Sword Pavilion Ocean, Murong Qingqing, was forced to marry a nobody? It's really a flower stuck in cow dung. Tuobaluan couldn't help but laugh when he heard the discussion. He gave Suyu a playful look, then said to Murong Qingqing, "Qingqing, come with me. Although I can't take you away from the engagement, I can take you to a safe place in the Cave of 10,000 Dragons." As he spoke, he pretended to hold Murong Qingqing's soft white hand. Murong Qingqing took a step back and said with a cold face, "Child Tuoba, please behave yourself. Qingqing is not a casual person." Tuobaluan was startled. He looked at her confusedly and said, "Qingqing, are you being controlled by his despicable means?" Murong Qingqing said seriously and disgustedly, "Child Tuoba, I understand your feelings for me, but please do not slander Child Shui. My engagement with him was of my own accord. I was not forced." Murong Qingqing said honestly, "I, Murong Qingqing, have only ever loved Child Shui. Child Tuoba, please do not pester me for no reason, and do not use any indecent means." Tuobaluan was petrified on the spot. He could not understand why Murong Qingqing, who was willing to throw herself into his arms and couldn't wait to marry him, had changed so much in just 1 year. That resolute attitude, that determined look in her eyes, it was as if she had changed into a different person. "Shuiyu, what kind of means did you use on him to confuse him like this?" Tuobaluan yelled angrily. The crowd was a bit dumbfounded by the sudden turn of events. Isn't Tuobaluan's means a bit too despicable? They are both willing, but he thinks so highly of himself. Maybe as the third force of the island, he is usually too confident. Hearing the unpleasant laughter, Tuobaluan stared at Suyu and Murong Qingqing angrily. "You? Alright, just wait and see. Especially you, Shuiyu." As he turned around, he stared at Suyu coldly. "Just pray that you can make it into the dragon cave alive. Someone has been waiting for you for a long time." Suyu squinted his eyes. He thought of someone who had surrendered to the Feather God clan. The traitor of the Shui family, Shui Lei. Both sides left, and the farce was over. Bai Hua Fairy's big bright eyes curiously looked at Shuiyu from top to bottom, then giggled. "Haha, how interesting, an unknown brat like you managed to catch Tuobaluan's attention. This doesn't match Tuobaluan's arrogant personality at all." 3 days later, the candidates of the 300 island forces arrived one after another. The crowd huddled together, waiting for the relic to open. Suyu secretly observed for a while, then said, "Why don't I see anyone from the Sword Pavilion? Aren't they going to join as well?" Murong Qingqing sneered, "They went in 3 days ago. There are 2 entrances to the relic, one of which leads to the dragon cave that is better preserved, and it opens 3 days earlier than the other, but only people from the Sword Pavilion are allowed to enter." Murong Qingqing pointed at an ancient city tower in the distance, which was gradually becoming clearer like a mirage, and said, "That is the entrance for us." Not only did they not restrict the cultivation of the people who entered, but they could also enter in advance. The Sword Pavilion really didn't plan to give the island forces many benefits. They only wanted them to be laborers once, to help them clean up the useless areas that were a pity to abandon and tasteless. "The 10,000 Dragon Cave is open, you can go in now." On the stone sword, light and shadow seemed to distort, and an old man with black and white hair appeared. He stared at the crowd below indifferently, as if he was staring at a herd of livestock, and said, It is inconvenient to follow the rules. Everyone, put the resources you have collected into the special space storage of the Sword Pavilion. If you hide anything, you will end up like the thousands of corpses buried here." He glared at the crowd below, and 2 solid beams of light fell down, blasting a huge deep pit in the ground. Layers of corpses piled on top of each other, and it was a ghastly sight. Murong Qingqing's heart palpitated as she said, "These are the people who have tried to deceive the Sword Pavilion and steal resources for many years. Without exception, once they are found, they will be executed immediately. Among these corpses, there are many young masters and young masters of the island forces." The old man with black and white hair said coldly, "Now, the 10,000 Dragon Cave is officially open." He tapped his right foot on the stone sword, and a wave of powerful sword energy shot out from the stone sword, shooting toward the mirage. A ripple of water rippled, and the mirage suddenly became clear. The island forces people, who had long been eager for a fight, entered through the city gate. "Let's go in as well." Suyu took out a gorgeous beast carriage from the leaf-shaped space ring. The beast carriage was surrounded by powerful seals, not only for stealth, defense, but also for attack. The 4 divine beasts that were pulling the carriage were the famous Heavenly Horn Rhinoceros. With a roar, the Heavenly Horn Rhinoceros pulled the people of the Shui family, charging straight into the ruins. This is too much. The Shui family thinks they can afford an imperial beast carriage, so they are unscrupulous. Good, don't let me run into them in the ruins. Humph! Isn't the Shui family afraid of incurring public anger? How dare they do this? Brothers, let's go. Among the huge crowd, a few strange gazes locked onto the beast carriage. Entering the city gate tower, the scene inside suddenly changed. It was a desolate seabed, sunken into the depths of the sea. Countless underwater creatures fled in fright. Look, starlight grass. Xuelin discovered that the vicinity of the city gate tower was filled with starlight grass, no less than 30. Half a year ago, the Shui family was on the brink of extinction for the sake of starlight grass. But here, it grew freely like weeds. He was eager to jump out of the carriage, but was stopped by Suyu, who said, "Useless." Xuelin shrunk his neck. How am I useless?" Suyu said impatiently, "Are you satisfied with a few stalks of starlight grass for an adventure once every 5 years? But the starlight grass is very important. It concerns the Shui family's foothold," Xuelin said reluctantly. Suyu shook his head and sighed. "Since there is starlight grass here, are we afraid that there won't be more in the depths? If we stop now to harvest the starlight grass, we will only be overtaken by the people behind us." Xuexin glared at Xuelin. "You fool! Just listen to Brother Xueyu. Why do you have so many questions? When did he ever harm you?" "Never." Xuelin laughed. "But where are we going?" Suyu touched the compass, which was hidden in his sleeve. The compass was pointing in the direction of the south. He did not understand this place, so he might as well try to walk in the direction pointed by the compass. Along the way, they found more and more spiritual treasures. 1 or 2 stalks of starlight grass could be found everywhere. There were even hundreds of stalks growing in large patches. But Suyu was unmoved, continuing to drive forward. The participants at the back gradually couldn't resist the temptation and gradually stopped searching. Hence, the number of people chasing behind Suyu was decreasing. However, there were 2 groups of people following the beast carriage like shadows. They were completely uninterested in anything that happened along the way and continued to chase after the beast carriage. Half a day later, the beast carriage finally got tired and stopped to rest. Suyu and the people of the Shui family all walked out of the beast carriage and scattered around to rest. Suyu said, "Split up and explore the surroundings. Return to the beast carriage in an hour." The crowd dispersed. A sneaky figure with a cold smile on his face entered the beast carriage. If Suyu were here, he would definitely recognize that it was none other than the traitor of the Shui family, Xuelei. After entering the beast carriage, He immediately drank a bottle of mysterious potion with amazing effects. His whole body gradually became transparent from the outside to the inside, and his breath quickly dissipated. Even a level 1 Cavern World Senior would not be able to sense Xue Lei's presence. If he suddenly stabbed someone with his sword, no one would be able to guard against it. Xue Yu, and the good people of the Xue family. I bet you didn't expect that I, Xue Lei, would come back. Xue Lei's face was ferocious, and he said bitterly, I told you that you would regret it. I will make sure that none of you return. He took out a transparent small sword and held it tightly in his palm. Chapter 16:13. In the beast carriage, everyone was extremely excited. As Su Yu had expected, there were more spiritual objects of the universe ahead. Brother Xue Yu, look, I found 101 starlight grass. Xue Lin's face was flushed as he said excitedly, the Xue family doesn't have to hand it in for a whole year. Xue Xian rolled her eyes at him. Say that if you can get past the inspection of Jianxian. Xue Lin scratched his head and said, I almost forgot, we can only get 20%. He put 20% of it into Jianxian's special storage ring, which was a small yellow sword. The space inside was not too big, and the items it could hold were no more than 1,000 cubic meters. Jianxian had deliberately restricted them from collecting too many resources. Jianxian was extremely guarded against the island forces. Xue Xian also took out about 100 starlight grass and reluctantly put them into her sword-shaped storage ring. The rest of them also had a good harvest. There were more than 300 starlight grass alone. According to the 20% ratio, there were more than 60. Next year's starlight grass mission will be much easier. Xue Zhangji stroked his beard, his face glowing. The rest of the people smiled happily. It's a relief. This year, Xue Lei destroyed the starlight grass, which was a devastating blow to our Xue family. Now we can finally relax. Xue Lin clenched his fists and cursed. In the dark, Xue Lei, who was holding a transparent small sword, glared angrily. But on second thought, he not only kept the small sword in his hand, but also curled his lips into a hideous smile. He secretly sneered and revealed a mocking expression. Hee hee, what a good clan of mine. You still can't forget me. Since that's the case, I'll let you taste the taste of despair again. He did not intend to kill them one by one, but to give them a bigger surprise. As night fell, Su Yu said, Stop and rest. Xue Lin and Xue Xian had harvested a lot during the day. They said reluctantly, 10 million miles ahead, it's a place with abundant resources. Any island will go there to harvest them. We finally got ahead of them, so why should we stop? Wouldn't it be better to rush there in one go? Shaking his head, Su Yu said, according to the records, don't act rashly at night in the cave of 10,000 dragons. Xue Lin listened to Xue Yu. Xue Zhangji said sternly, Xue Yu is right. The cave of 10,000 dragons is not like the outside world. Every night is the most dangerous time. Back in the day, countless divine dragons were buried in the cave of 10,000 dragons. The dragon souls gathered here and came out at night. Over the years, the number of living beings that were taken away by the dragon souls is uncountable, Xue Zhangji said solemnly. He was the only one who had participated in the 10,000 dragon cave many times, so his understanding of the place far surpassed that of others. Only then did Xue Lin stick out his tongue and shrink into the corner of the beast carriage. Su Yu and Xue Zhangji got off the carriage and set up a seal near the beast carriage to prevent unknown enemies from invading. The next morning, a sharp scream broke the silence in the beast carriage. Cold sweat flowed down Xue Lin's forehead as he said in panic, My storage ring is gone. Everyone was startled awake, and their expressions changed greatly. Losing a storage ring was no small matter. At the end of the expedition, the storage ring would be taken back by Jianxian. If there was a loss, with Jianxian's style of doing things, he would not listen at all. Not only would the person who lost the storage ring have to undergo a soul search, but everyone accompanying him would also have to undergo a soul search to ensure that the storage ring was not stolen. Who didn't have their own secrets? Once their souls were searched, the consequences could be imagined. Moreover, in addition to the loss of a storage ring, the resources obtained by the accompanying team would be deducted by half again as a punishment. In other words, they could only get 10% of the resources found. Shui Zhangji realized the seriousness of the situation and shouted, "It's useless to take one more storage ring. If any of you took it, hand it over now, and I can pretend I don't know." He looked around, and no one showed a strange expression. Shui Zhangji shouted, "The beast carriage has not been opened all night, no one has entered or left, and the storage ring is missing. It must be one of you. If you don't hand it over, don't blame me for searching you one by one. If I find out, I won't let you off so easily." But everyone still looked around, their eyes filled with suspicion, and tacitly kept their distance from each other. The sense of vigilance could not be stronger. "Uncle Shui, don't jump to conclusions," Suyu said. "With the Shui family's current situation, I don't believe someone would be so ungrateful as to harm the Shui family." He looked at Shui Lin and said, "Think again. Did you lose the starlight grass when you were looking for it today?" Shui Lin shook his head with certainty. "Absolutely not. I know very well that I kept it in my pocket." "Are you sure?" Suyu stared at him. Shui Lin met Suyu's gaze and could not help but feel guilty. He muttered, "Could I have remembered wrongly?" He was already lacking in confidence, and after being questioned by Suyu, he immediately lost his confidence. "Everyone, split up and look for it," Suyu ordered without hesitation. Shui Zhangji said, "Everyone? What about the beast carriage?" "Let it. If the storage ring is lost along the way, it will be inconvenient to look for it in the beast carriage," Suyu said. Everyone thought about it. Although it was troublesome, they could only lead the beast carriage back. Shui Zhangji frowned. "Our Shui family is viewed as an enemy by many factions. The beast carriage is the key to our escape. We cannot lose it. Let me lead it." His cultivation level was the highest among them. With him leading the beast carriage, anyone who wanted to snatch it from him would have to think twice. No one had any objections. The consequences of losing the beast carriage would be unbearable. If they encountered the Feather God clan, based on the strength of both sides, they would all die here. "All right, there is no time to lose. Let's set off immediately," Suyu said as he led the group back. Everyone spread out and looked around for the storage ring that had been lost. After half a day, when they found a valley, the worst-case scenario occurred. Shouts shook the sky around the valley, and 10 powerful auras rushed out. They were the Sea Serpent tribe, which ranked 6th among the island factions. "Haha, look what kind of prey we have found." The leader was an elder of the Sea Serpent tribe, and he sneered. The rest of the Sea Serpent tribe took a closer look and could not help but burst into laughter. "Isn't this the Shui family? Why are you back again?" "Humph! You were so arrogant when you entered the ruins. Now let us, the Sea Serpent tribe, have a taste of your strength." The Sea Serpent tribe elder sneered and gave a look. The 10 of them flew down from the valley and surrounded the Shui family. Shui Zhangji's face fell. He said, "Everyone, get on the beast carriage immediately." If they fought head-on, the Shui family would not be a match for them. Only the beast carriages could break through their encirclement. Thinking of this, Shui Zhangji could not help but feel lucky. Fortunately, the tribe master had paid a great price to prepare this beast carriage. Otherwise, they would have really died here. Hearing this, the Shui family immediately gathered around the beast carriage and prepared to escape. Chapter 16-14. A small, invisible sword flew out from the beast carriage and stabbed into Shui Zhangji, who was pulling the beast carriage. Suyu seemed to have sensed it in advance. He flew over and pulled Shui Zhangji away. Qi, the transparent sword, brushed past Shui Zhangji's shoulder, leaving behind a long wound. "Ha ha ha!" Wild laughter came from the beast carriage. "My Shui family! I haven't seen you for quite a few years." A transparent figure jumped out of the beast carriage and rode on a fierce beast. Many of the Shui family members were startled. Since when was there a person hiding in the beast carriage? Everyone from the Shui family was enraged. "Shuelei, it's you, you evil creature?" No one would have thought that Shuelei, whom they wanted to hack to pieces, was actually hiding in their beast carriage. What they hated the most was that at the moment of life and death, Shuelei had snatched the beast carriage and dealt them a devastating blow. Just like how he had destroyed the starlight grass and nearly brought disaster to the Shui family. "Ha ha ha, that's me." Shuelei revealed a look of resentment. "Don't you all hate me? Then I'll let you guys hate in hell." "Shuelei, how much do you want to harm us before you stop?" Shui Zhangji roared furiously, and his eyes almost split apart from rage. He wished for nothing more than to tear Shuelei into pieces. Shuelei let out a long laugh. "How about it? If you kill Shuiyu now, I will consider leaving the beast carriage behind and spare your lives. Shuelei, if you still remember your surname, it's not too late to turn back now." Shui Zhangji shouted. What answered him was Shuelei's unbridled laughter. "Turn back? I, Shuelei, have never made a mistake. The ones who are wrong are you bunch of ignorant people." Shuelei threw his head back and laughed. He patted the carriage, and the vicious beasts immediately pulled the carriage, breaking through the encirclement and disappearing into the horizon. A burst of wild laughter reverberated in the sky for a long time. "I'll come back to collect your corpses." With that, he drove the beast carriage away. At this moment, the members of the sea serpent race pounced over with a sinister smile. "Hee, what a wonderful show! At the most important moment, your own people hurt you the most. Ah! Even the heavens want you dead." However, what stunned Venerable Sea Serpent was that the plain-clothed young man who led them took out a leaf-shaped interspatial storage item unhurriedly. Then, he took out a huge beast carriage. In terms of size and grade, it was even higher than the previous beast carriages. Another Emperor-level beast carriage? Venerable Sea Serpent was stunned. Why did you prepare two such high-level beast carriages? Unless the Shui family had anticipated that they would lose one from the very beginning. In other words, one of them was meant to be sacrificed in the first place. Suyu jumped into the carriage without uttering a single word, then calmly asked the Shui family's people, who were still in a daze, "Why don't you all come up?" The Shui family members, who were prepared for a fierce battle, let out a wild cry and jumped into the carriage. When the members of the sea serpent race pounced on them, the beast carriage had already started moving. Under the impact of the powerful beast, a young member of the sea serpent race was sent flying. Then, it rushed into the sky and disappeared without a trace. Inside the beast carriage, the Shui family members, who still had lingering fears, were extremely excited. Shui Zhangji was surprised. "Why did the patriarch give you two emperor-grade beast carriages?" The rest of the people looked at Suyu curiously. With the financial resources of the Shui family, it would be difficult for them to prepare one emperor beast carriage. Why would they prepare two at all costs? Suyu smiled and said, "To be exact, I asked the patriarch to prepare them. It was to get rid of some unnecessary troubles." Before they had arrived at the historical remains, Suyu had received a letter from a sharp arrow, warning him not to participate in the Cave of 10,000 Dragons. Otherwise, his life would be in danger. Suyu had not been careless, so he had prepared two beast carriages. The first beast carriage had deliberately collided with them, attracting everyone's attention, including the enemies. His original intention was to use the first beast carriage to lure the enemy away. But now, it seemed that his unintentional action had not only lured the enemy away, but also attracted a tumor that had been hiding for a long time. Suyu's eyes were cold, and he said coldly, "Let's go and give Shuelei a surprise." The two beast carriages could sense each other, so it would not be difficult for them to catch up with him. Shui Zhangji's murderous intent surged when he heard that. He clenched his teeth and said, "Don't attack, all of you. I want to cut him into pieces with my own hands. Shui Lei had snatched the beast carriage and rushed into the desolate wilderness in high spirit. He stopped slowly, silently calculating the time, and said, with the gap in strength between the two clans, the few good-for-nothings from the Shui family should not be able to last more than 6 hours. When the time comes, I will go back and collect their corpses. Tuobaluan had promised that if he could bring back Su Yu's head, he would be treated like a member of the Divine Feather Clan. For Shui Lei, that was a treatment that could only be chanced upon. Swoosh! Swoosh! Suddenly, Shui Lei's ears moved, and he stared at the dense wilderness around him. He yelled, "Who is it? Come out!" The vegetation in the wilderness swayed, but no one answered him. What answered him was a dense barrage of black arrows. Each arrow was bound with a blood-red talisman. Upon seeing the talisman, Shui Lei's soul left his body, and he gasped. The mysterious heavenly blood talisman? The so-called mysterious heavenly blood talisman was one of the most advanced talismans in the Jianxian Ocean, and its power was immense. Each talisman contained the full force of a Level 2 Cavern World Senior. The 30 arrows were all bound with the mysterious heavenly blood talisman, which was equivalent to the full force attack of 30 Level 2 Cavern World Seniors. Shui Lei was only a Level 4 Cavern World Senior. One mysterious heavenly blood talisman was enough to blast him into pieces, let alone 30. Suddenly, he realized that the target of these arrows could not be a mere Level 4 Cavern World Senior like him, but the Shui family. Judging by the massive amount of mysterious heavenly blood talismans prepared at all costs, they were prepared to wipe out the Shui family in one fell swoop and destroy them all. Unfortunately, Shui Lei happened to snatch the beast carriage. Those mysterious killers had mistakenly thought that the people in the beast carriage were all from the Shui family, and had chosen to kill them. Realizing this, Shui Lei was scared out of his wits, and he said in horror, "Wait, you killed the wrong people." After a deafening explosion, the beast carriage, together with Shui Lei, was blasted into pieces. When the smoke and dust dissipated, several figures leaped out from the bushes. The leader was Li Jun, the second-ranked heaven ruler of the Li family. Behind him were the candidates for the Cave of 10,000 Dragons. Except for Li Yu, everyone else was present. Phew! Li Jun looked at the scene of devastation, and let out a long sigh. They are finally dead. An elder looked confused, and said, "I think I heard that they killed the wrong people. Did I hear it wrong?" Li Jun laughed. "Humph, the Shui family probably did not expect that someone would pay such a high price to kill them, so they naturally thought they killed the wrong people. Unfortunately, they were the ones I wanted to kill. To be precise, it was Su Yu. The rest were just killed along the way." The elder was still cautious and said, "It's better to confirm it. Shui Yu is a great threat to the Li family. I can't be at ease if I don't confirm it." Li Jun waved his hand, and one of the clansmen immediately took out a testing instrument and dripped Shui Lei's remaining blood into it. Suddenly, the instrument made a crisp sound. Li Jun laughed. "See, the instrument has a reaction. It can't be wrong. This is the blood of the Shui family. Su Yu has been protecting them, so they must have died in there together." The elder heaved a sigh of relief and said, "All right, let's leave as soon as possible. We can't let the Starry Pavilion know about this." The group left quickly. Chapter 16:15. What was that big explosion just now? Shui Zhangji was shocked and confused. Su Yu glanced at the destroyed land and the remaining blood. After thinking for a moment, he sighed. "Heaven is full of reincarnation. If you don't believe me, look up and see who the heavens have forgiven." The Shui family members jumped out to look and were shocked. Judging from the fragments, it was Shui Lei who stole the beast carriage. How did it get destroyed? Murong Qingcheng also came over and said in shock. Shui Zhangji suddenly understood and couldn't help but laugh. "Ha ha ha, this is retribution. Shui Lei caused the death of so many people of the Shui family, and now he has to bear the disaster for us. Ha ha ha, retribution." The people realized that it was the enemy of the Shui family who killed Shui Lei by mistake. Haha, good for him! He did all kinds of evil, and he died for us before he died. He did a good deed, hee. Shui Lin sensed something and dug out a sword-shaped storage artifact from the ruins. Ah, found it! Shui Lin laughed happily as he found what he had lost. So this is where I fell. How strange, I've never been here before. The Shui family members were speechless. Everyone knew that the sword-shaped storage artifact was stolen by Shui Lei. The reason was probably because Shui Lin had called him a bastard yesterday, and Shui Lei had taught him a lesson. Why don't you say anything? Shui Lin scratched his head, feeling guilty under the strange stares of the people. The people were still speechless. What else could they say in the face of such a silly person? Shui Zhangji stared at the ruins, pondered for a moment, and said to Su Yu telepathically, Shui Yu, who do you think it was? Such large-scale destruction had obviously been planned for a long time, and they were prepared to annihilate the entire Shui family, leaving not a single one alive. Shaking his head, Su Yu said, I don't know. It could be the Feather God clan, Hong Lei, or the Li family. But no matter who it was, we are already dead, which is the best thing for the Shui family. As he spoke, Su Yu took out the beauty under the moon and threw the outer iron sword into the ruins. It looked like the remnant fragments from the big explosion. Shui Zhangji froze for a moment, then understood Su Yu's intention. His eyes lit up and he gave a thumbs up. Haha, that's great. Let the outside world think that our Shui family was ambushed and all of us died tragically. That way we will be much safer. Su Yu smiled and said, So, uncle, from now on, you will lead the clansmen to look for resources in the periphery. Shui Zhangji said in surprise, Shui Yu, could it be that you? I want to enter the Dragon Cave. Everyone was shocked. Dragon Cave? Murong Qingqing said with surprise, Mr. Shui, the Dragon Cave is surrounded by people from the Sword Pavilion. Once you run into them, it will be very dangerous. The area they had been active in for the past 2 days could only be considered the outskirts of the Myriad Dragon Cave. The true dragon lair was only a very small area. There were many corpses of divine dragons there. It was the core area of the dragon lair. Most of the island forces chose to operate in the periphery. The outer perimeter was incomparably large and rich in resources. The island powers either collected resources here or blocked the way to rob others, obtaining quite a bountiful harvest. They would not enter the dragon lair easily to avoid angering the people from the Sword Pavilion. Shui Zhangji also advised, the dragon lair is not a place that island forces like us are qualified to set foot in. Once you are discovered, even if you can escape the pursuit in the dragon lair, can you escape the sniper attacks from the Sword Pavilion outside? With the domineering style of the people from the Sword Pavilion, hunting down Shui Yu was not just a joke. It was very likely that they would really do it. Why don't you stay in the periphery with us? With our current identity of total annihilation, it will be very safe. We can search for resources wherever we want. This year's harvest will definitely surpass that of previous years, Shui Zhangji said. His words were not unreasonable, but Su Yu had a reason to go to the dragon lair. Whether he could achieve the divine path depended on how much dragon marrow he could bring back from this adventure. I have made up my mind, Su Yu said. You guys leave this place as soon as possible. I will let you use the beast carriage. Shui Zhangji tried to persuade him again and again, but Su Yu was determined. He could only give up and said, Shui Yu, you are now the hope of our Shui family. No matter what the situation is, I hope you will put your life first. I will, Su Yu said. With that, Shui Zhangji led his people and left quickly. Only Murong Qingqing stayed behind. She looked at Su Yu and said, I can't find the team of the Murong family, and I can't contact them. I have nowhere to go. Su Yu said without hesitation, No. If we are discovered, the Murong family will be implicated. Now that the Shui family had the support of the Starry Pavilion, Jian Xian might not dare to do anything to the Shui family. But in the Murong family, one word from Jian Xian was enough to determine the fate of the Murong family. Murong Qingqing bit her lip and said, "Then take care." Nodding, Su Yu leaped up and headed straight for the dragon lair. Several hours later, a beautiful figure holding an emerald-green sword gracefully descended and stood in front of the iron sword that Su Yu had thrown away. She squatted down and held the iron sword. Her crystal-like eyes were filled with regret. She said softly, "I warned you, why did you still come?" Sigh, a worthy rival of mine has left just like that. If Su Yu were here, he would not be mistaken. It was none other than Li Yu from the Li family. She could not stop her people from plotting to kill Su Yu, so the only thing she could do was to inform Su Yu in advance. Unfortunately, Su Yu did not listen to her advice. "If I become the master of the Li family one day, I will definitely set up a monument for you on the Twin Star Island." Li Yu's usually calm face was filled with disappointment. She stabbed Su Yu's iron sword into the ground, making it look like a tombstone. Then, she looked at the dragon lair. Her eyes flashed and she flew over. The commotion attracted a lot of attention, and the nearby forces rushed over, including the Li family. What happened? Looking at the huge destruction, the people who rushed over were all vigilant. Li Jun pretended not to know, and said with a terrified expression, "Who did this?" Suddenly, he noticed the iron sword. His eyes turned and he said, "I recognize that iron sword. It is the weapon of the Shui family's second young master, Shui Yu." "Are you talking about the Shui family, the arrogant Shui family?" "Haha, if it was them, then they deserved to die. Who asked them to be so arrogant?" Li Jun, who had quietly retreated from the crowd, smiled coldly and sighed in relief. Farewell, Shui. 5 days later, Shui Yu arrived in front of a series of canyons. Looking down from above, one could clearly see that the series of canyons formed a huge claw mark. It was like some kind of giant creature had scratched the ground with its sharp claws, leaving a shocking mark. Waves of dense dragon power filled the area. "I finally found an unexcavated dragon lair." Su Yu let out a breath of turbid air. In the past 5 days, Su Yu had found 7 or 8 traces of the Dragon Clan's battle. Unfortunately, they had all been excavated, and not even the remains of the divine dragons could be found. Unknowingly, he had found his way to the depths of the dragon lair, until he arrived at the strange Dragon Claw Canyon. The thick dragon energy was much stronger than what he had found before. His eyes flashed, and Su Yu found a hidden spot, ready to jump down. Unexpectedly, a black shadow jumped out from below. In the dragon lair, it was a black-clothed man again. Su Yu could not think of anyone other than the people of Jianxian. Su Yu was slightly shocked. Without thinking, he pulled out the beauty under the moon and stabbed it. Clang! Not only was the black shadow's reaction extremely fast, but his swordsmanship was also superb. Not only did he block the stab, but the powerful sword energy also attacked Su Yu's brow. Su Yu did not retreat. Instead, he moved forward and swept away the opponent's sword energy with the demonic moon revolving style. At the same time, the curved sword energy spread and slashed at the opponent's neck. The black shadow snorted, and the divine power of a level 3 cavern world master was released like waves, scattering the curved sword energy. Then, the black shadow stepped on the canyon and leaped up. He glared at Su Yu, but he was in a hurry and had no time to pay attention to Su Yu. Su Yu instantly realized that something was wrong. He immediately stuck an invisible talisman on his body and disappeared. As long as he did not touch him, he would not be discovered. Chirp! Almost at this moment, a shrill screech rushed out from the depths of the canyon. Whoosh! There was a sudden change in the air above the cliff, and a strange black bird with faces all over its body rushed out. There were 2 young men standing on the back of the strange bird. Su Yu even knew one of them. Hong Lei. Su Yu was surprised. At this time, Hong Lei was half a step in front of the young man in the posture of a follower. Although, with Hong Lei's cultivation, he did not deserve to be the young man's guard. Because the young man was an invincible level 2 cavern world master. They followed the black shadow closely. The level 2 young man's face was cold. He said coldly, "Little bitch, how dare you rob me of the stone dragon bone sword? You are really reckless." Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. The stone dragon bone sword? Su Yu's eyes turned. He did not intend to be nosy, especially when the opponent was the level 2 cavern world master. But just as Su Yu was about to leave, he suddenly froze and took out the compass. At this moment, the needle of the compass rotated violently, and then suddenly stopped. The fixed position was not somewhere else, but in the direction where the black shadow and the young man left. Su Yu's expression was slightly serious. According to Shui Yuntian, the compass was found in a mysterious space in the cave of 10,000 dragons. In that space there was only the compass. This thing was definitely not ordinary. After a moment of contemplation, Su Yu turned and chased after the black shadow. After chasing for a short while, Su Yu's brows sank. He stopped on the crown of a tree, ran his fingers through the leaves, and took out a translucent drop of divine blood. It was the divine blood of the black shadow. I wonder if it's too late. Su Yu followed the trail of blood, and soon came to a white dragon bone cemetery. The ground was full of abandoned dragon bones, scattered and messy. These were the dragon corpses that Jian Xian had excavated over the years. After taking out the dragon marrow, he abandoned them here. Over the years, the dragon bones were as numerous as the hair on a cow, forming an endless bone mountain. The dragon bones had not melted all year round, and the dragon power that they emitted formed a white mist barrier. In the mist, people could not even distinguish north from south, east, and west, let alone breath. The black shadow was hiding here. Obviously, he came prepared, Su Yu secretly analyzed. No matter how strong the enemy is, breaking into this place to catch him is as difficult as finding a needle in a haystack. Looking at the compass in his hand, Su Yu's mouth curled into a faint smile. I wonder what the so-called stone dragon bone sword is, and why it has caused the compass to react. If one looked closely, he would find that the dragon barrier did not affect the needle of the compass at all. It pointed clearly and accurately in the direction of the black shadow, constantly changing its position as he moved. Chapter 16:16. With a faint smile, Su Yu stepped into the miasma. Little bitch, if you come out now, I will spare your life. If I find you, you will die without a burial place. A faint clamor fell into his ears. Su Yu followed the compass and went straight to the depth. When he came in front of a huge divine dragon skeleton, Su Yu stopped. Sir, you don't have to hide, Su Yu said. You are seriously injured. I guess you don't want to fight to the death with me, right? He looked at the flowing divine blood under his feet. The other party's injury was not as simple as being injured. The blood was flowing nonstop. There was no movement in the skeleton. Su Yu's eyes flashed and he said, "Excuse me." With a flash, Su Yu stepped into the skeleton. As soon as his front foot entered, a sword light like a gorgeous cherry blossom shone head-on. Su Yu pulled out the beauty under the moon and used the demon moon revolving style to break up the opponent's sword light. The remaining arc-shaped sword energy rushed into the white miasma. With a soft groan, something fell to the ground. Su Yu stepped inside, and the airflow dispersed part of the miasma. He saw the situation in front of him clearly. A black-robed person with divine blood flowing from her abdomen was lying unconscious on the ground. Su Yu's sword energy only hurt her shoulder and knocked her out. The wound on her abdomen was fatal. What a domineering swordsmanship! Su Yu stared at the wound on her abdomen. He could see small milky white swords moving back and forth in the wound. Once the wound healed, the small swords would immediately cut it open again. No matter how strong the black-robed person's healing ability was, she could not resist the residual sword energy. Jian Xian's swordsmanship is good, Su Yu said to himself. Swish, swish. The faint flow of the miasma made a soft sound in Su Yu's ears. Someone was walking towards this place quickly. Without hesitation, Su Yu searched the black-robed person and immediately found a sword-shaped storage ring. It seemed that he was also a member of an island force. He probed it, and sure enough, he discovered a strange dragon bone. Its appearance was gray, as if it had been petrified. However, in the damaged corner, there was a white jade-like luster, like a woman's skin. At the same time, an amazing dragon power poured out from the white jade. The Si Nan in Su Yu's hand was firmly locked onto the dragon bone. It was obvious that it was an extraordinary item. I'm sorry, but I want this dragon bone, Su Yu said calmly, while he threw the sword-shaped storage ring back to him. He sensed that the air currents were speeding up. It was the young master of the sword Chalet and Hong Lei approaching. His heart turned cold, and Su Yu immediately retreated along the path he had come from. Before he left, he glanced at the motionless black-robed man. After a slight hesitation, he pulled him over. Forget it. I've taken your item and saved your life. We don't owe each other anything. To prevent his divine blood from dripping and leaving traces, Su Yu caught all the divine blood with the mortal fairy's strength. Then, he retracted his aura and left silently, not causing any changes in the miasma. A moment later, two figures descended upon this place. Young Master Jian Xian looked around with narrowed eyes. His eyes were extremely special. His eyeballs were pale white, but his pupils were sword-shaped. Hong Lei said, "Young Master, the commotion just now came from here. It can't be wrong. Did she escape in advance?" Young Master Jian Xian glanced at the pool of divine blood on the ground and said coldly, "How could she escape after being hit by my destructive sword energy?" Then she. Hong Lei also keenly noticed that the nearby miasma showed no signs of flowing, and there were no traces of divine blood dripping on the ground. Young Master Jian Xian's face was sullen, and he was filled with murderous intent. Obviously, someone saved her. That little B***tch really had an accomplice. Hong Lei said fiercely. For the sake of this stone dragon bone sword, Master Jian Xian was trapped under the canyon by 10 intact dragon souls. If this sword was taken away, it would really be a gift to someone else. Young Master Jian Xian's face became even more sullen. The canyon created by this dragon claw was the core area of the dragon cave. There were tens of thousands of divine dragon remains inside. Some of the remains were so powerful that they gave birth to intact dragon souls. They were so powerful that they were comparable to overlords. Back then, Jian Ruxiong had entered rashly and was almost trapped by those dragon souls. He had to use all his strength to escape. When he went deeper, he was surprised to find that those dragon souls were guarding a petrified dragon bone. The last time he had found such a treasure guarded by a powerful dragon soul was when the stone sword was born. And the stone sword was very useful to Jian Xian. The swordsmanship released from it had created Jian Xian's current flourishing situation. Jian Xian knew very well that this was another shocking discovery. That petrified dragon bone was definitely an extremely important item. It was very likely not inferior to dragon bones. For this, Jian Xian had prepared for decades, expending large amounts of resources to refine 3 powerful talismans and 10 true Emperor-level divine weapons. The goal was to suppress those dragon souls. Everything went smoothly. Jian Ruxiong relied on the talismans and true Emperor-level divine weapons to successfully suppress the dragon souls. And thousands of people from Jian Xian fought with the remaining dragon souls in the canyon. The casualties were extremely tragic. Young Master Jian Xian's personal bodyguards escorted him to the bottom of the canyon to pull out the stone dragon bone sword. In the end, the bodyguards, which were all Third Heaven Cave Abode World Venerables, only had 2 or 3 people left. That was fine. After obtaining the stone dragon bone sword, everything they had sacrificed was not too late. But what made Jian Xian's young master furious was that just as he was about to succeed, a mysterious black figure suddenly attacked and snatched the stone dragon bone sword. How could he be willing to let it go? "Little bitch, you want to escape from my palm? In your dreams." Jian Xian's young master growled, his sword-shaped pupils suddenly enlarged. Sword light rushed out of his eyes, sweeping in all directions. Wherever the sword light went, the young master could see the situation. Su Yu, who was quickly leaving the miasma, felt something and looked back. A sword light came into view. The sword light also discovered Su Yu, and immediately hovered above his head, spinning rapidly. Oh no! Su Yu's heart sank. Without thinking, he took out the cloud sky ship and flew through the air. In a breath, Su Yu was hundreds of millions of miles away. The sword light could not catch up. With a turn, it flew back into the miasma. "Thief, where do you think you are going?" Soon, the miasma rolled, and the figure of the young master flew out. He stared in the direction where Su Yu had escaped, furious. "If I let you escape, I will write my name upside down." Heavenly Heart Sword Eyes. 2 drops of bright red blood flowed out of his sword-shaped pupils. The drops of blood scattered into millions of drops, each turning into millions of tiny sword shadows. They rushed in all directions, covering the entire cave of 10,000 dragons. Su Yu's expression changed rapidly as he escaped. This trip to the cave of 10,000 dragons might have to end, Su Yu thought. After encountering the young master of the sword pavilion, he might not have the time to return to the cave to search for the dragon marrow. "Sigh, how troublesome," Su Yu said with a frown. He had obtained the stone dragon bone sword, but lost the dragon marrow. He did not know if it was a loss or a gain. Looking at the wound of the black-robed man who was still unconscious, Su Yu said, "Although the sword energy is strong, it is only a remnant. It is not difficult to remove it." The beauty under the moon pulled out the sword, a mysterious sword will emanating from her palm. It was like specks of starlight streaking across the night sky, emitting a brilliant light. The 2 diametrically opposed sword energies collided and cancelled each other out. The remnant milky white sword energy was removed bit by bit. The sword energy dissipated, and the wound on the abdomen healed itself. Suddenly, the black-robed man moaned, and her consciousness gradually recovered. "Who are you?" The black-robed man opened his confused eyes and asked. That voice belonged to a woman. It was a voice that Su Yu was very familiar with. Su Yu had been wearing a mask when he entered the dragon cave, so the woman had never seen his true face. She did not recognize Su Yu, but Su Yu recognized her. It was Li Yu. Although they had only met briefly, Su Yu would never mistake her for someone else. It was indeed Li Yu. Why would she sneak into the dragon cave to snatch the stone dragon bone sword? Was it a coincidence, or was it premeditated? To prevent being exposed, Su Yu put her down on the cloud sky ship without a word and left alone. Li Yu was left behind. Suddenly, she rummaged through her sword-shaped storage ring, and her almond-shaped eyes froze. The stone dragon bone sword. She looked in Su Yu's direction. She was indifferent, but she was extremely vexed. "I have failed my mission." Swoosh! Suddenly, a weak blood-red sword shadow attacked from the horizon. Li Yu looked up, her expression grave. Heavenly Heart Sword Eyes? She took off her dark clothes and entered the dense forest nearby, sticking close to the ground to escape from the blood sword. Not long after, Su Yu changed his clothes and hid in a cave. Taking out the stone dragon bone sword, Su Yu pondered. It will be troublesome to take this sword out. Before leaving the dragon cave, the people of the sword pavilion would definitely check the storage ring. How could it be easy to take such an important item without them knowing? After thinking for a while, Su Yu tried to refine it with his blood, but the stone dragon bone sword did not react. "Do I have to leave this sword here?" Su Yu was a little reluctant. But it would be extremely difficult to take it away. Just as he was worrying, Su Yu suddenly thought of the sea nan. He took it out and saw that the sea nan was vibrating continuously, and a faint red light was emitting from it. Eh? Is there something strange about the inside of the sea nan? He clenched his fist and crushed the sea nan. Suddenly, his palm was hit by an extremely hard object. When he opened his palm, he saw that it was a crystal-colored jade stone. Is there something else in the sea nan? Suyu thought for a moment, then dripped his blood on the jade stone. The result was unexpected. The jade stone easily accepted him as its master. At the same time, there was a roar in Suyu's mind, and a huge scene appeared in his mind. An incomparably huge mountain fell from nothingness into the sky above the sea. From the mountain, huge dragons flew out one after another, so huge that they blotted out the sky and the sun. Among them, tens of millions of dragons were chasing a giant red dragon. Suyu recognized that dragon at a glance. It was the epoch-making dragon. They were fighting in the sky above the sea, and the law of heaven and earth descended. In just 3 days, the once bustling sea region had been reduced to a wasteland. Giant divine dragons fell into the sea one after another. One of the divine dragons with a crown on its head was smashed to pieces by the epoch-making dragon. Before the divine dragon with the crown died, it spat out the dragon pearl and threw a white dragon-shaped long sword into the sea. The scene stopped abruptly, and Suyu's face was surprisingly calm. It seems I was right. The origin of the Cave of 10,000 Dragons really has something to do with the epoch-making dragon, Suyu said coldly. I guess it's for the Dragon Abyss treasure scroll? He was increasingly convinced that the epoch-making dragon did not have good intentions in giving him the scripture. It was a scripture that had triggered the pursuit of tens of thousands of divine dragons. There was something wrong with giving it to an outsider to cultivate. Shaking his head, Suyu extinguished the idea of cultivating the Dragon Abyss treasure scroll again. When he opened his eyes, his palm was empty. The crystal was gone. The stone dragon bone sword was also gone. Suyu was shocked, but he immediately realized that there was an additional item in his mind. His soul moved, and he was shocked to find that the crystal was already in his soul. What surprised Suyu even more was that the crystal was a space storage device. The stone dragon bone sword was lying quietly in it. Chapter 16-17. This is the first time I've heard of a storage device in the form of a soul. Suyu studied it for a long time and was surprised to find that even souls from the outside could not detect its existence. Just like the divine nine-dragon cauldron, if it did not show itself, it would be difficult for outsiders to detect it. This discovery made Suyu's heart tremble. He took out a starlight herb from the sword-shaped storage ring. He tried to put it into the crystal space, and the result was easy. The crystal space had already recognized Suyu as its master. Suyu's eyes flashed as he murmured, "So, everything I get from the Cave of 10,000 Dragons can be hidden in the crystal space without being detected by Jianxian, including the stone dragon bone sword?" As Suyu thought of this, the huge rock on his chest suddenly loosened, and his worries disappeared like smoke in the wind. "Ha ha, the heavens have not forsaken me." Suyu could not help but laugh. Since he was not worried about the stone dragon bone sword being discovered, he was not in a hurry to leave. He looked at the stone dragon bone sword again. In the painting, the dragon emperor spat out the sword before he died. This showed that the sword was extraordinary. But why can't I refine it? Suyu caressed the stone sword. Suddenly, he discovered a hole the size of a thumb on the hilt of the stone sword. It looked like something could be inserted into it. He suddenly remembered that in the painting, the dragon emperor spat out not only the stone dragon bone sword, but also the dragon pearl. The size of the dragon pearl was exactly the same as the hole in front of him. What about the dragon pearl? Suyu asked in surprise. Suddenly, Suyu thought of something and said in surprise, "Could the dragon pearl be there?" Swish! As Suyu was thinking, a few breaths flew past his head. Looking up, Suyu recognized them all. One of them was from the Murong family, and the other was from the Feather God clan. Tuobaluan was among them. Tuobaluan, Are you really going to kill us all? The one who led them was an elder of the Murong family, Murong Jin, a level 3 cavern world master. They split into 2 teams to search for resources in the Cave of 10,000 Dragons, but unexpectedly encountered Tuobaluan. Tuobaluan did not say a word and immediately chased after them. Several of his clansmen died on the spot. They had the advantage in numbers. Murong Jin led his clansmen to escape and met up with the rest of the Murong family in Een Mountain. Humph! If you want to blame someone, blame that bitch Murong Qingcheng. She dared to trick me, Tuobaluan said with hatred. Murong Qingcheng shielded Suyu in front of everyone and rebuked him for being unreasonable, causing him to lose face in front of all the island forces. When he ran into someone from the Murong clan, how could Tuobaluan have a good attitude? Tuobaluan, I advise you to think thrice before you act. If you really harm the vitality of my Murong family, Shui will not let you off. Murong Jin shouted fiercely. Before they departed, the clan master, Murong Fong, had already led the clan's powerhouses to Twin Star Island to reconcile with the Shui clan. The alliance between the 2 clans had been re-established. In other words, half of the Star Pavilion stood behind the Murong clan. Unfortunately, the news of Shui becoming the Star Pavilion's appraiser hadn't spread out in time. As for Hong Lei, he didn't dare speak of the matter of him offending the Star Pavilion. Otherwise, the first person to kill him would be Jian Xian. Therefore, he kept his mouth shut about the fact that Suyu had been personally invited by the Star Pavilion master to join the Star Pavilion. Hence, Tuobaluan didn't know anything about it. He laughed angrily. That ant? If he dares to show his face in front of me, I'll kill him. Heaven's frost feather. As he spoke, the pure white wings on Tuobaluan's back moved abruptly. With a trail of icy snowflakes, he flew past Murong Jin in an instant and blocked in front of them. The speed of the Murong clan slowed down abruptly. The Divine Feather clan caught up with them and attacked them from the front and back. Murong Jin clenched his teeth. We're being attacked from the front and back. If we keep running, we'll suffer even more casualties. Let's fight. I've already sent out an emergency message. Soon, another group of clansmen will rush over. Hang in there. Haha, that's if you can hang in there until then. Tuobaluan laughed coldly. The pure white wings on his back shot out like tiny swords, piercing through the crowd of Murong clan members. All of a sudden, tragic screams could be heard. Several people were injured. A level 4 Cavern World senior, a middle-aged clansman, had his head pierced by a feather in order to protect a young man. He died on the spot. Murong Fong. Murong Jin roared sorrowfully like an enraged lion. His entire body was filled with godly power like a tsunami as he pounced towards Tuobaluan alone. Tuobaluan sneered coldly. Idiot! Suddenly, a grey shadow pierced through the ground. Like a venomous snake, it launched a fatal attack at the most opportune moment. The grey shadow held a dark green short sword and pierced it into Murong Jin's chest. Murong Jin was indeed an expert of the older generation. He had rich battle experience. Not only did he not panic, he calmly used his godly technique. Floating light shadow. His chest was actually strangely transparent, as if it was an illusion. The dark green short sword pierced through empty air. Murong Jin dodged the attack, but before he could react, he suffered a heavy and fierce palm strike from the back. The huge force penetrated his upper body, causing his entire body to crack and his internal organs to be damaged. At the same time, the grey shadow seized the opportunity and pierced the dark green short sword into Murong Jin's back. Pucci, an ice-cold sensation entered his body and quickly froze his life force. Dong, Murong Jin's body went limp and he fell to the ground. A cold, pale, dry hand grabbed the back of his neck from behind and pressed him to the ground, forcing him into a kneeling position. Enduring the intense pain, Murong Jin looked back, his pupils constricting slightly. Tuoba Ing, I should have known you were nearby. As the personal guard of the current young master Tuoba, how could you leave even half a step? If Suyu was here, he would recognize the gray-robed elder as the elder who had accompanied Tuoba Luan into Murong Island. His cultivation had reached the peak of Level 3 Cavern World Senior. Moreover, he had been at this level for hundreds of years. He was so powerful that even a Level 2 Cavern World Senior might not be able to do anything to him. Haha, you were rude to the young master. Murong Jin, you should say goodbye to this head of yours, Tuoba Ing said calmly. Tuoba Luan laughed evilly. Uncle, don't be so rude. After all, he secretly supported me in marrying that woman, Murong Qincheng. No matter what, we were once allies. He waved his hand to let go of Tuoba Ing. Severely injured, Murong Jin fell to the ground weakly. Tuoba Luan walked over and patted his cheek, chuckling. Seeing that you and I were once allies, I will give you a way out. Without Murong Jin, the remaining young people were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Say it, Murong Jin said weakly. Tuoba Luan stood up and brought the boot to his mouth. The corner of his mouth was filled with mockery. Lick it clean and I'll let one person go. Eat the boot and I'll let two people go. If I'm happy after eating it, I'll let all of you go. Ha ha! Murong Jin laughed weakly. His laughter was sarcastic and contemptuous. Tuoba Luan, where do you get the confidence that I will trust you? Even if I use my toes to think, I can tell that you won't keep your promise. A person like you, other than your family background, you have nothing. Wah! Before Murong Jin could finish, a large foot stepped on his face and pushed him into the mud. Tuoba Luan stepped on his face, his eyes cold and sinister. Since you know, I have no time to play with you. Go on your way. Whoosh! Suddenly, several meteors streaked across the sky and exploded into several balls of extremely resplendent fireballs. Tuoba Ing was shocked. He waved his sleeves and blocked 3 or 4 fireballs. He shouted, "Be careful, young master, there is a sneak attack." Chapter 16-18. He retreated, his snow-white feathers flying out once again to protect his front. Crap! A spark ignited the feathers, setting them ablaze. Tuoba Luan was shocked. Feather escape. When all the white feathers were burned, his body suddenly turned into a large mass of white feathers, and he teleported thousands of miles away, avoiding the fatal blow. However, there was still a trace of burning sensation on his face. A trace of blood slowly slid down his chiseled cheek. His heart palpitated. If he had hesitated just a little longer, it wouldn't just be his skin that was cut. He focused his gaze and saw a man in disguise standing where he had originally been standing. He wasn't guessing, but the disguise was too crude. He had only put on a black robe that covered him from head to toe. Who are you? Tuoba Luan stared at the long sword in the man's hand that was condensed from moonlight. The blade was dripping with divine blood. It was his divine blood. Thinking of the scene just now, Tuoba Luan shuddered and became extremely vigilant. Who I am is not important. What's important is to forgive and forget. We are all island forces, so why kill each other? The cave of 10,000 dragons is not over yet. The man in the black robe was undoubtedly Suyu, who had attacked in a hurry. Tuoba Luan was slightly shocked. You are also from the island forces? He had never heard of such a dangerous person. Yes. Can you give me some face and let them go? Suyu said. Tuoba Luan's heart wavered. If he could, he wouldn't want to be enemies with such a person. But he had always been conceited, so how could he bow his head to someone else? Why should I give you? Suddenly, Tuoba Ing stopped him and transmitted his voice into his ears. Tuoba Luan's expression changed again, from unwillingness to helplessness, and finally to compromise. Putting away the white feathers, Tuoba Luan cupped his fists and said, "All right, I will give you some face." He stared at Murong Jin and snorted coldly. Consider yourselves lucky to have met this brother. Murong Jin was surprised. Among the island forces, who would be willing to go against the third-ranked Feather God clan and help the tiny Murong family. Thank you, Murong Jin said. Su Yu pulled him up and said, Let's go, we can talk later. Sir, please wait. Tuobaluan's eyes flashed as he said. Su Yu turned his head, his eyes revealing a sharp glint. What? Are you going back on your word? Tuobaluan's nostrils flared and he said haughtily, A few mere pieces of trash aren't worthy for me, Tuobaluan, to regret. I asked you to stay because I have a great opportunity to discuss with you, Tuobaluan said. Su Yu smiled. If Tuobaluan knew who he was talking to, would he still make the deal? Opportunity? Why don't you tell me about it? Tuobaluan's eyes flickered as he stared at Su Yu and said, Do you only see those starlight grasses? Su Yu was slightly surprised, and his eyes lit up as he asked, What do you mean? Tuobaluan stared at Murong Jin and the others and said coldly, If you want to be silenced, I don't mind doing it myself. Murong Jin knew that they had a secret to discuss, so he cupped his fists at Su Yu gratefully and led his people away. After confirming that there was no one around, Tuobaluan said seriously, Many years ago, we discovered an unknown divine dragon's remains. It is not in the area of the Dragon Cave, so you don't have to worry about the people of the Sword Loft discovering it. You can excavate to your heart's content. Tuobaluan revealed something that made Su Yu's heart palpitate. Su Yu's pupils contracted. Really? Tuobaluan proudly said, Of course. Only me, Bai Hua Fairy and Lu Tianji know about this, and now, you are the fourth. It was obvious that Su Yu's stunning sword had left a deep impression on Tuobaluan, which was why he had invited Su Yu to participate. Why did you choose me? Su Yu squinted his eyes. Tuobaluan said, First, your strength is not bad. Secondly, I happen to need a helper, and you are the right person. Lu Tianji and Bai Hua Fairy had always been at odds with Tuobaluan. With the three of them working together to excavate the remains, it would be strange if Tuobaluan did not have any misgivings. He needed a reliable candidate, but apart from Tuoba-ing, the only one who could compete with him was the mysterious black-robed man. Tuobaluan threw out the bait. You, me, and Tuoba-ing should be able to take half of the credit for the excavation. By then, we can get half of the dragon bones. I can promise a 3-3-4 split. You and Tuoba-ing will get 30%, and I will get 40%. After all, I was the one who told you the news, so I want an extra 10%. Su Yu pondered for a long time. The divine dragon's remains that were not in the dragon cave were simply tailor-made for Su Yu. If he could get enough dragon marrow, it might not be impossible to cleanse the remaining divine path. As long as he could become a divine path, Su Yu could gradually unlock the space storage device, and his strength would recover greatly. All right. Su Yu nodded in agreement. Tuobaluan laughed heartily. Awesome. Let's go, I'll introduce you to Bai Hua Fairy and Lu Tianji. At the border between the periphery and the dragon cave, a bare mountain covered in blood-red light stood on the horizon. Lu Tianji and Bai Hua Fairy stood at the top of the mountain, looking at a map and gesticulating something, their brows furrowed in distress. Sensing Tuobaluan's departure, Bai Hua Fairy scrunched up her nose. Not caring about proper business, only chasing after Murong family's people, do you even care about this at all? Suddenly, her big bright eyes noticed Su Yu, and she immediately became vigilant, saying in a low voice, Tuobaluan, why did you bring an outsider here? Tuobaluan chuckled. He is a member of the Feather God clan, not an outsider. Feather God clan him? I don't remember a guy in a black robe in the Feather God clan's team this time, Bai Hua Fairy said. Tuobaluan was too lazy to explain. It's up to you whether you believe me or not, but if you reject him, don't regret it. His swordsmanship is extraordinary. If we don't have him, I'm afraid we won't be able to excavate the dragon bones this time. It wasn't just Bai Hua Fairy, even Lu Tianji was surprised. A mysterious aura emanated from Lu Tianji's body. Faintly, the threads of fate were shaking slightly, as if he was divining something. Bai Hua Fairy laughed. Without him, we won't be able to find the dragon bones? Haha, I don't believe it. 100 Flowers Seeking Sword. Bai Hua Fairy suddenly stepped forward. A field of colorful flower phantoms fell along with her figure. Tuobaluan saw it, but not only did he not stop her, he even showed a mocking expression, as if he was watching a good show. Shit! The seemingly weak flower suddenly shot out countless small swords from its pistils. Each of them carried a different attribute. Some were intoxicated, some were poisoned, some were invisible, and there was even time, for a moment, Suyu thought he had met someone who was proficient in hundreds of magical powers. But upon closer inspection, he realized that was not the case. It was just a special kind of divine path. Pulling out the beauty under the moonlight, Suyu turned into a shooting star like a long sword. Dark Night Meteor Thrust. Suyu's afterimages appeared one after another, but in a breath's time, he had already stabbed out dozens of times. The tip of the sword left a brilliant trail in the air, like a falling meteor, extremely dazzling. The hundreds of flowers were destroyed by the sword. Then, a ray of sword light pierced through the broken flowers and touched the tip of Bai Hua Fairy's nose. Chapter 1619. Impressive swordsmanship, at least among the island forces. No one in the same generation can surpass you. Bai Hua Fairy looked at Suyu in surprise. Suyu retracted his sword, flicked a purple flower on his shoulder, and said, "You're not bad yourself. Your one flower one world attainment is also unparalleled. We can only be considered a draw." The purple flower that fell from Suyu's shoulder contained a faint trace of divine blood. On Suyu's shoulder, a trace of red slowly bloomed. One more step and it would be fatal. The two were tied. Of course, in a serious fight, Bai Hua Fairy would definitely win. Whether in terms of cultivation or years of training, Bai Hua Fairy would definitely beat Suyu. Being able to fight to a draw was partly because she underestimated Suyu. Lu Tianji frowned and said, "May I ask your name? I can't predict anything about you." As an outstanding person in the art of divination, Lu Tianji could easily divine anyone's good or bad luck. Although his fate was vague, it was traceable. Only Suyu, the result of his divination, was a mess. It was as if there was something too powerful on Suyu that obstructed his divination. Suyu thought for a moment and said, "Suyu." Su's surname. Lu Tianji, Bai Hua Fairy, and Tuobaluan all thought at the same time. There were countless forces in the Jianxian Ocean, but there was not a single one with the surname Su. Could it be a small force? Of course, he might be using a fake name. The three of them understood. Lu Tianji said, "All right, Brother Su, we are lacking a swordsman. If you want to join us, we welcome you." Bai Hua Fairy said, "The divine dragon remains here gave birth to a strong dragon soul, proficient in a swordsmanship passed down from the dragon race. It is very powerful. We have tried several times, but we could not resist that swordsmanship. If it is Brother Su, and we already have a swordsman, maybe it will work." After a pause, Bai Hua Fairy looked at Tuobaluan. "You will take 40% of the treasures found. As for how to divide it, you can discuss among yourselves." Gently nodding, Suyu said, "All right, let's not delay, let's go." Lu Tianji said, "Wait a moment, our swordsman has other matters to attend to and has not returned yet." Suyu frowned slightly, then nodded and sat down cross-legged to train. Lu Tianji and Bai Hua Fairy looked at each other, constantly exchanging glances and sending their voices. Where did Tuobaluan find such a sword expert? That kind of sharp swordsmanship, other than the sword gable, no other force has grasped it. Bai Hua Fairy's voice sounded very serious. Lu Tianji said, "He's not from the sword pavilion, but he's also not from the island. I've divined his background." "What? Then why did you say just now that you can't see anything?" Bai Hua Fairy was surprised. Lu Tianji said indifferently, "Of course it's to not make him wary, but I'm not really lying. My divination of him is indeed a mess. I've never seen anyone whose fate and fortune are so complicated. At this point, Lu Tianji's brows furrowed slightly. I only managed to catch a glimpse of his background, but he is actually not a member of our sword pavilion. What? Bai Hua Fairy was shocked. Could it be that he's the same as us also? More or less, they should be of the same status as us, Lu Tianji said leisurely. Bai Hua Fairy looked worried. Sigh, Tuobaluan really found a troublesome person. If the two of them work together to cause trouble, even you and I will have to be careful. Hee, Tuobaluan wouldn't dare to cause trouble, but the one with the surname Su, you really have to be careful of Tuobaluan. From what I know of Tuobaluan, he is not someone who would easily give up on his own interests. Lu Tianji smiled and shook his head. Bai Hua Fairy thought for a bit, then said, "That's true, that idiot, he couldn't cooperate with anyone but Tuobaluan. He will regret it one day." A few days later, a sharp sword energy flew across the sky and arrived at this blood mountain. Bai Hua Fairy smiled and rushed forward, giving the other a big hug. Xiao Yu is finally here. Su Yu looked up and couldn't help but be a bit surprised. The so-called sword expert was a woman dressed in black. Although she was masked, wasn't she the Li Yu that Su Yu saved from the hands of the sword pavilion's young master not long ago? Why was Li Yu together with Lu Tianji and the others? Why did she enter the dragon cave alone and steal the stone dragon bone sword? Her actions were completely inconsistent with her identity as a member of the Li family. Li Yu lightly pushed Bai Hua Fairy away, stared at Su Yu and coldly asked, "Who is he?" It's a swordsman. He's with you to fight against that dragon soul," Bai Hua Fairy smiled and said. Li Yu asked, "Have you tested it?" "Yes, his sword technique is mysterious, comparable to your Song of the Blue Heart sword," Bai Hua Fairy said. Li Yu didn't question it and said, "Very well." Then, she retracted her gaze and didn't say a word. Lu Tianji smiled. "Sister Yu, did you complete the mission?" Hearing that, Li Yu shook her head and sighed. "I failed on the verge of success. The sword pavilion's young master was too strong. I was hit by his destructive sword energy and was saved by someone, but the mission item that I snatched was also taken away by the person who saved me." Lu Tianji and Bai Hua Fairy both sighed. "Sigh, what a pity." Li Yu looked up. "Don't worry, although I failed the mission, I will continue to keep my promise. You have given me detailed information about the dragon cave in the canyon. In return, I will help you deal with the soul of this divine dragon. Let's go." She was here to act as a free helper. Mission? Su Yu's gaze wavered slightly. The remains of the divine dragon they were talking about were at the foot of the Blood Mountain. This Blood Mountain was formed by the blood essence left behind by a divine dragon. Countless years had passed. The essence of the blood essence had long lost its essence, but the remnant dragon energy had concealed the remains of the divine dragon beneath the blood essence. The people of the Sword Pavilion had passed by this place many times, but had ignored it and never carefully excavated it. That was the benefit of Lu Tianji and the others. They had already opened up a passage to the Blood Mountain, and Su Yu followed them straight to the foot of the mountain. There was another world at the foot of the mountain. A broken space that had been shattered by the creation force had survived until now. Because of the power of law, this broken space had never been repaired and remained in its original state. Upon closer inspection, the shape of the broken space looked like a claw mark left behind by a giant dragon claw. Everything around it had turned into nothingness. Only the space between the palm and the 4 dragon fingers remained intact. And they were located outside the palm mark. Through the dragon fingers they could enter the palm. And in the palm, there was a giant divine dragon that had been smashed into pieces. The flesh and blood of the dragon's body had decayed, leaving only white dragon bones. From the cross-section, drops of crystal-clear dragon marrow could clearly be seen rolling in the spinal cord. Su Yu's heart thumped. The size of this divine dragon was much larger than the one in the altar on the Twin Star Island. Even if it could reach 50%, it could still break through the remaining 1,000 divine paths. However, under the dragon bones sat a white-robed middle-aged man. He had a pair of sharp yellow dragon horns on his head and wore a yellow robe. He sat in front of a bone table made of dragon bones, playing chess by himself. Su Yu's pupils shrank slightly. A soul with a physical form? Lu Tianji, Bai Hua Fairy, and Tuobalun all had solemn expressions. Their expressions indicated the identity of the soul. The dragon soul. For a soul to still have a physical form after so many years of death, its strength was not to be underestimated. The dragon soul sensed something, put down the chess piece in its hand, and turned to look at them. You guys are here again. Lu Tianji cupped his fists and said, Elder, since you have fallen, why don't you leave your legacy for us future generations? Isn't it a pity to bury it under the soil? The dragon's soul stood up, and with a suction force from its palm, a 7-foot-long sword made of white bones emerged from the ground. He pointed at Lu Tianji from afar and said indifferently, I was formed from the obsession of the original body before its death. Whoever can defeat this remnant soul will be qualified to obtain the relic. You can only obtain it through action, words cannot convince me. Lu Tianji said, Then, please excuse me. He shook his sleeve, and a silver scroll flew out, covered with floating lines of various colors. Can Gate Lord Sun, South Gate Lord Ji. Lu Tianji moved his finger, and the floating lines on the scroll immediately danced up and down. Bai Hua Fairy leapt up, and took the southernmost dragon finger. You run fast. Tuobalun could not take the south side in time, and could only take the middle dragon finger. Liu randomly chose the northernmost dragon finger. Su Yu had no choice, and entered the dragon finger near Liu. The four of them each took a dragon finger, and surrounded the dragon soul from 4 directions. The dragon soul indifferently held the sword and let out a long sigh. A lonely soul and white bones have been alone for 10,000 years, 1 sword and 1 chess piece, the world's plan. Yellow heavenly dragon sword technique. First style, green heavenly sword. Lu Tianji's eyes released a mysterious aura, quickly moving the lines on the scroll, and said, Inauspicious star northward, Sister Yu, retreat. As soon as he finished, the dragon soul struck with his sword. Creak. The terrifying sword chi directly covered the dragon finger on the north side. The already fragile space between the dragon fingers was cracked by the sword energy, like a thin layer of ice that was about to shatter. Su Yu's pupils shrank. The dragon soul did not have a cultivation base, and relied entirely on its powerful sword technique. The power of that sword was comparable to Su Yu's sword at its peak. How could Lu Tianji and the others defeat such a terrifying sword technique? Fortunately, Liu retreated in time, and avoided the disaster. But Bai Hua Fairy and Tuobalun took the opportunity to jump into the center of the palm, and attacked the dragon soul. 100 Flowers Sword. Icy Snow Feather. The dragon soul was attacked, and its body dimmed a little. It was strong, but as a soul it was also very weak. Yellow Heavenly Dragon Sword Technique. Second style, Heavenly Sword. Crash. A tiny sword energy visible to the naked eye, like the first ray of light since the beginning of the world, swept across the chaotic universe. Seeing this, Su Yu's heart trembled. How similar was this style to the Cosmos sword formation of the Demon Sword Emperor? The difference was that it was a little more powerful than when Su Yu used it. Even the Overlord-level creatures of the Star River might not be able to withstand this sword. Lu Tianji's brows were solemn, his hands moving quickly, and he quickly shouted, Evil Master Shuang Tian, retreat quickly. Bai Hua Fairy slipped away. Although Tuobalun's reaction was a little slower, he had the upper hand in terms of speed, and returned to the outside of the palm before Bai Hua Fairy. Ouch! Bai Hua Fairy's buttocks were swept by the remnant sword energy, and she immediately covered her buttocks, crying out. Of the 4 dragon fingers, only Su Yu was still there. He was not attacked by the sword energy, and took the opportunity to fly towards the dragon soul, his eyes sharp. Dark Night Meteor. Using his fingers as a sword, he stabbed out repeatedly, creating several sparks in the air, and with a puff, the sparks were ignited. The body of the dragon's soul was hit dozens of times, and its body became more transparent by more than 30%. In terms of effect, it was comparable to Tuobalun and Bai Hua Fairy combined. Everyone was delighted, but Li Yu frowned. Why not use a sword? Su Yu's mouth twitched. How could he dare to use beauty under the moonlight? Wouldn't that expose his identity? At that moment Lu Tianji hurriedly shouted, "The ominous light is in the sky, the 4 paths are destroyed, everyone retreat from the dragon fingers, the most dangerous sword is coming." This dragon's soul was very strange. After every sword attack, it could not defeat him, and all the damage it had caused before was erased. With a new attitude, it continued to wait for challenges, and became stronger and stronger, until it defeated everyone. Because of this, they could not defeat the dragon soul, because they could not withstand the 3rd sword. Su Yu had heard about this on the way. At this moment, he did not retreat, but spoke the dragon language, and performed a simple seal. His index and middle fingers, which were the sword fingers, were surrounded by milky white aura. It was the dragon power. The sword fingers were stained with the dragon power, and Su Yu pointed again. Dark Night Meteor Thrust. Puff, 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 a shocking scene appeared. It was the same move, but the damage suffered by the dragon's soul was 2 orders of magnitude higher. The former weakened the dragon's soul by 30%, but this finger actually weakened the dragon's soul by 90%. As for the other party, he had already unleashed his most dangerous sword move. Yellow Heavenly Dragon Sword Technique, 3rd style, Yellow Heavenly Sword. The heavenly sky had died, the yellow heavenly sword would rise. After the heavenly sword was an even stronger style, the yellow heavenly sword. At that moment, Su Yu could almost hear his own heartbeat. He had not performed the sword technique, but he had a premonition of his own death. Not only would his body perish, but his soul would also perish. Bang bang. The great danger caused Su Yu's soul to tremble violently, affecting the crystalline soul space. The silent stone dragon bone sword suddenly flew up on its own, landing in Su Yu's palm. Su Yu felt something strange in his hand, and before he could think about what it was, he stabbed with the sword. Dark Night Meteor Thrust. Bang! A powerful piercing sound exploded in everyone's ears, causing their ears to ring. What shocked them even more was that the dragon soul that had raised the sword had its body pierced by a powerful dragon-shaped sword energy, instantly dispersing into nothingness. Looking at Su Yu's palm, he was holding a strangely shaped stone dragon bone. The corner of the bone was a white dragon bone, emitting a suffocating dragon energy. It was this strange stone dragon bone that had destroyed the dragon soul. Su Yu's heart still palpitated. Lowering his head to look, Su Yu was shocked and immediately realized that something was wrong. But it was too late. A cold gaze had already locked onto him. "It's you." Li Yu flew over, both angry and grateful. Su Yu had still been discovered. In front of Li Yu, he kept the stone dragon bone into his sword-shaped storage ring. "You." Li Yu was a little angry, but she wanted to laugh. "Don't you want to explain?" Su Yu said. "Explain what?" "May I ask where this dragon bone came from?" Li Yu asked. "I picked it up," Su Yu said calmly. Li Yu pulled out her jade-green sword, staring at Su Yu. "Must I use my sword?" Su Yu turned his head, calmly saying, "You have to be stronger than me." Hearing this, Li Yu realized that the dragon bone, combined with Su Yu's sword techniques, could destroy the dragon soul in one strike. She had no chance of winning. Her words reminded the crowd. The dragon soul had been destroyed. How were the treasures going to be distributed? Everyone's gaze turned to the dragon bone in the center of the palm, and they all pounced towards it. Su Yu also pounced.